Welcome to Sleepy Stories. Get comfortable, close your eyes. Tonight, we're going to join the crew of a king who leaves a long conflict, expecting a voyage of weeks, and spends 10 years trying to find his way home. You are standing on the weathered deck of a black-hulled ship, its timbers sealed with pitch. The air is heavy with the scent of salt spray and damp rope, and the faint, bitter memory of smoke that still clings to your tunic. Before you, the Aegean Sea is a vast sheet of liquid silver under a rising sun. Behind you, the coast of Troy, the site of a decade of relentless struggle, is finally shrinking into a hazy, dreamlike line on the horizon. Your part in that epic story is over. Now, you are going home. Your captain, your king, is Odysseus of Ithaca. He stands at the prow, a familiar silhouette against the dawn, his gaze fixed westwards. He is a man renowned for his sharp mind, his shrewd counsel, his ability to unpick the most tangled of knots. This journey, a simple island hop across a familiar sea, should be the easiest puzzle of all. A few weeks of favorable winds, a few stops for supplies, and you will see the shores of your island kingdom again. You can almost feel the warmth of your own hearth, hear the familiar voices of your family. The ship beneath your feet is a lean galley built for speed, not comfort. Your bed is the hard deck, your pillow a coil of rope, your blanket the star-filled sky. Your companions are the men you have stood beside for 10 years, their faces etched with the same profound weariness and the same quiet hope that you feel blooming in your own heart. You are a veteran, a survivor, and you are finally going home. You look towards the 11 other ships in your fleet, their single square sails catching the same gentle morning breeze. A small armada, its holds filled with bronze tripods and fine textiles from a fallen city, all destined for the storerooms of Ithaca. The mood is light, almost serene. The gods, it seems, are smiling on your return. There is no sense of the decade of wandering that awaits you, no hint of the strange islands and stranger beings that lie between this calm sea and the rocky coves of home. For now, there is only the rhythmic creak of the steering oars, the soft whisper of the wind, and the quiet, certain belief that your long journey is almost over. Your long journey home begins not with a straight line, but with a deliberate raid. After leaving the shores of Troy, a favorable wind carries your fleet north to the coast of Thrace. You make landfall in the territory of the Sirens. To a mind from a different age, this would be an act of piracy. But to you, a veteran of a decade-long siege, it is something else entirely. The ingrained habits of a long and brutal conflict do not simply fade with the first taste of sea salt on the homeward breeze. It is an opportunity. You and your comrades disembark, your leather sandals sinking into the warm, pale sand. Before you, nestled in a gentle fold of the coastal plain, lies the city of Ismarus. It appears peaceful, its stone walls glowing softly in the afternoon light, seemingly unprepared for the arrival of a dozen warships filled with seasoned fighters. Your king, Odysseus, ever pragmatic, gives the order. What follows is a swift and decisive action, a pattern you have repeated countless times in the small towns that dotted the Trojan plains. You move through the city streets with the grim efficiency of soldiers gathering spoils, the accepted payment for your long years of service. Gleaming bronze tripods, bolts of richly dyed wool, heavy jars of dark, fragrant wine, and the intricate goldwork of the Thracian artisans. This is the world as you understand it. The wealth of one city becomes the wealth of another through strength of arms. There is no notion of international law, only the ancient and unyielding law of the stronger. Your actions are not seen as piracy, but as one final logical act in a campaign that has already cost you so much. With the ships laden and the city subdued, Odysseus, whose mind is always several steps ahead, urges a quick departure. He understands better than anyone that a victory is only a victory if you live to enjoy its rewards. He sees the setting sun, the open sea, the vulnerability of your position on an unfamiliar shore. His counsel is to weigh anchor and leave with the tide, putting the Sirens and their land behind you, but his words are lost amidst a rising tide of celebration. Your comrades, your brothers in arms, are deaf to his quiet wisdom. They are weary of discipline, tired of the carefully measured rations, exhausted by the relentless vigilance of the last 10 years. Here, on this pleasant beach, are casks of strong sweet wine from the city's stores and the Siconi's herds of sheep and fat-horned cattle, ready for the roasting pit. A great feast begins, a spontaneous outpouring of relief and pent-up desire. It is a moment of blissful, dangerous release, and it proves to be deeply unwise. You watch as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and purple, and casting long, cool shadows across the sand. The discipline that held you all together like a tightly wound rope for a decade at Troy begins to unravel in the warm haze of wine and self-congratulation. Songs are sung, stories of Troy are retold with boisterous laughter, and the grim reality of your situation is forgotten. Perhaps you feel a small, persistent prickle of unease, a quiet whisper in the back of your mind that this celebration is premature. You have taken the city, yes, but a city is more than its walls and its wealth. It is its people. The survivors of the raid have not simply vanished. They have fled inland, carrying word of your attack to their neighbors and kinsmen, other Cyconian tribes who are more numerous, more familiar with this rugged terrain, and now filled with a desire for retribution. As the first light of dawn spills over the eastern hills, they arrive. They come not as a disorganized militia, but as a disciplined force, moving with purpose across the fields. They are like leaves on the trees in autumn, their numbers seeming to fill the landscape. The new light glints on the polished bronze of their spear tips and the rims of their shields. They fall upon your comrades on the beach, many of whom are still slow and heavy-headed from the night of feasting. The contest that follows is not a battle of equals. You are no longer the confident victors of Troy. You are a scattered group, caught unprepared, fighting for your lives on a hostile shore. The sand becomes a place of confusion and struggle, the familiar sounds of combat echoing in the morning air. You are pushed back towards the sea, towards the safety of your ships. Men scramble to launch the heavy vessels into the gentle surf as spears are through the air around you. The air, which only hours before was filled with song, is now thick with the clang of bronze on bronze and the strained shouts of men. You manage to push your own vessel into the water, your muscles burning as you and your shipmates strain at the great oars, pulling away from the chaos on the shore. But not everyone is so fortunate. As your ship and the others gain the open water, a terrible accounting is made. From each of the 12 ships, 6 men are missing. 72 comrades in all. You look back at the beach, now a distant strip of white, and see the still forms of those who will never feel the soil of Ithaca beneath their feet again. A profound and heavy sadness settles over the fleet as you sail away into the vast emptiness of the sea. The spoils you gathered, the wine and the gold that seemed so important yesterday, now feel worthless, tainted by the loss of good men. Following the solemn rituals of the sea, you perform the final rites. From the deck of each ship, you call out the name of each fallen man 3 times, your voices carrying across the waves in a mournful, echoing farewell. The wind that was once your adversary is now just a low, sighing sound in the rigging of your sail. The easy journey home has already met its first bloody complication. Your king Odysseus is silent, his face a mask of grim contemplation. The first lesson of this new voyage has been learned. The war may be over, but the world is still a dangerous place, and the old habits of conflict bring only more of the same. The sea ahead is vast and unknown, and your fleet, your small community of survivors, is already diminished. The sun climbs higher, but the day feels colder now, and the path towards home seems to have grown longer still. For 9 days you are utterly at the mercy of the sea. After leaving Ismarus, a great and terrible storm, a furious northern gale sent by a displeased Zeus, descends upon your small fleet. This is no ordinary squall. It is a relentless, churning chaos that seems intent on swallowing you whole. The familiar blue of the Mediterranean turns to a bruised, slate grey, heaving with white frothed waves that crash over the decks. The wind howls through the rigging, a high, mournful sound that gets inside your head. Your sails, the pride of your ships, are torn to ribbons, flogging uselessly against the groaning masts. You and your comrades work without rest, your movements becoming mechanical, bailing the cold, briny water that sloshes around your ankles, fighting to secure rigging that has come loose, your hands raw and bleeding. There is no day or night, only an endless twilight beneath a thick veil of cloud. The sun and the stars, the ancient guides of every mariner, have vanished. You lose all sense of direction, all track of time. You are no longer sailors navigating a known course from Troy to Ithaca. You are simply survivors, adrift on a vast and hostile ocean, pushed far beyond the charts of the known world. On the 10th day, as if a switch has been thrown, the storm breaks, the wind dies down to a whisper, and the churning sea settles into a gentle, rhythmic swell. Gaps appear in the clouds, and warm, golden sunlight streams through, making you blink before you. Shimmering in the clean, post-storm air, lies land. It is not a coastline you recognize. No rugged, familiar cliffs of the Greek islands, but something softer, greener. As you guide your battered ships closer, a warm, sweet air drifts out to meet you, heavy with the scent of unknown blossoms and ripe fruit. You have been driven to the land of the Lotus-Eaters. It looks like a vision of paradise. The beaches are of the finest white sand, shelving gently into turquoise water. Beyond them, the vegetation is a deep, lush green, a landscape of profound and welcoming peace. After the fury and terror of the storm, this place feels like a blessing, a gentle hand laid upon a fevered brow. Your ships find a safe, calm anchorage in a sheltered bay. With a gratitude so deep, it feels like a prayer. You step onto solid ground, your legs unsteady after so long on the violent sea. The immediate need is for fresh water, as your casks are nearly empty. Odysseus, ever the cautious leader, does not allow a general disembarkation. He selects a small party of 3 men to venture inland to scout the area, find water, and learn what they can of the inhabitants. You watch them go, their figures looking small as they are swallowed by the dense, verdant foliage. You and the others remain by the ships, finding a clear, cool spring near the shore and beginning the vital work of replenishing your waterskins. The weariness of the last 9 days settles deep into your bones, a heavy, leaden ache that the peaceful surroundings cannot quite erase. Hours pass. The sun, a great orange orb, begins its slow descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in soft, gentle shades of purple and gold. But the scouting party does not return. There has been no sound of alarm, no cry for help, no sign of a struggle. There is only a profound, enveloping silence, broken by the soft lapping of waves and the melodic calls of strange, colourful birds. It is a gentle, yet deeply unnerving stillness. Odysseus's brow furrows with concern. He chooses a few more men, and this time, you are among them. You are to go and find your comrades. You follow the faint path the first group took, moving from the bright beach into the cool green twilight of the island's interior. The air is still and warm, thick with the drowsy hum of insects and the heady perfume of flowers. You come upon a clearing, and there you find them. Your missing comrades are not harmed. They are not captured. They are sitting peacefully among a group of the island's natives, the Lotus-Eaters, who are gentle, smiling people with a languid grace. Your friends are eating. The natives have offered them the island's peculiar fruit, a honey-sweet, pulpy food that grows on a plant resembling a lotus flower. Your comrades look more serene than you have ever seen them, their faces slack with a blissful contentment you haven't witnessed since before the long, brutal years at Troy. They see you approach and they smile, but it is a vacant, distant smile. It does not truly seem to recognize you. They offer you the sweet, tempting fruit. One of your companions speaks, his voice firm, reminding them of their duty, of the ships waiting on the shore. He tells them it is time to return. They simply shake their heads, a slow, lazy refusal. They have no desire to leave. The fruit they have eaten has done more than satisfy their hunger. It has wiped their minds clean. All memory of home, of wives and children, of the kingdom of Ithaca waiting for its king, has been erased. The long years of war, the comrades they lost, the arduous journey that still lies ahead, all of it has dissolved into nothing. Their only desire is to stay here, in this warm, gentle place, and eat the lotus forever. This is not a violent threat, but in its own way, it is more dangerous than any sword or spear. It is the peril of forgetting, of losing the very will that drives you homeward. It is the death of purpose. Odysseus understands this immediately. He does not waste time trying to reason with them. He sees in their placid eyes that the men he knew are no longer there. He gives the order, "You must seize them." You and the others grab your own friends, who begin to weep and plead to be left behind, their voices filled with a strange, heartbreaking sorrow. You must physically drag them, struggling back through the beautiful scented forest to the ships. You are not fighting an enemy, you are saving your comrades from a pleasant dream, forcing them back to the harsh reality of the sea. Back at the shore, the memory of the Lotus-Eaters recedes, a strange sun-dazed chapter that feels more like a dream than a lived experience. You sail on, the familiar rhythm of awe, and wave a comforting return to reality. The sea is a placid mirror of dark wine, and soon your ship, scouting ahead of the fleet, finds its way to a new shore, guided by the gentle hand of a favorable wind. Before you lie two islands, nestled closely together, as if in quiet conversation. One is a small, lush paradise, an emerald jewel set in the vast blue of the sea. It appears entirely untouched by human hands, a world that has existed in perfect solitude. The air that drifts across the water carries the scent of wild thyme and damp earth. As you draw closer, you see it is teeming with wild goats, their coats a shaggy mixture of black and brown, grazing peacefully on the steep green slopes. This island promises sanctuary. It is a perfect place to rest your weary bodies, to draw fresh water from its hidden springs, and to replenish your dwindling supplies. You and your comrades make camp here, on a soft sandy beach. The days are spent hunting the goats, your arrows flying true, and the nights are filled with the welcome sight of roasting meat turning over crackling fires. The taste of the rich, savory food, and the sound of your companions' voices, relaxed for the first time in what feels like an age, begins to knit your spirits back together. Here, on this gentle shore, you feel a profound sense of safety. From the haven of your camp, you can see the other island. It looms across the narrow strait, a stark and imposing contrast to your peaceful refuge. It is a larger, more formidable landmass, a rugged spine of mountains that scrapes against a hazy, indifferent sky. You can see plumes of smoke rising from unseen fires deep within its hills, but there are no other signs of an organized society. You see no neat squares of cultivated land, no cities clinging to the coastline, no harbors bustling with ships. It is a wild, untamed place, a land that seems to exist outside the ordered world. You know, Odysseus, his sharp eyes scanning the distant peaks, tells you what he knows of its inhabitants. They are the Cyclops, a race of giant, one-eyed shepherds. He speaks of them as a people without laws, without community. They are solitary beings, living in echoing caves, each one a tyrant ruling his own family, with no regard for the gods or for other men. They do not till the earth. They do not build ships to sail the sea. They do not gather in an assembly to debate and make laws. They represent the very antithesis of the Greek ideal of civilization. To a modern mind, this would be a clear and unambiguous warning, a signal to weigh anchor and sail in the opposite direction. But you live in a different time, a heroic age where the world is still brimming with wonders and monsters, and a king's worth is measured not just by his wealth, but by his courage and the breadth of his experience. Odysseus is driven by an insatiable curiosity, a fundamental need to know, to see, to understand the nature of the world and all its inhabitants. He decides he must visit the island. He must see these Cyclops for himself and determine if they are savage beasts or a God-fearing people who might welcome strangers with hospitality. He is testing the bounds of his world and the reach of its sacred laws. He prepares one ship his own for the short journey across the strait. He does not risk the entire fleet, but his caution is tempered by his ambition. He selects his 12 best men to accompany him, his most trusted and loyal companions. You are one of them. As you ready the vessel, you feel a familiar mixture of apprehension and unwavering loyalty. You trust your king's judgment, for it has seen you through countless perils, but the sight of that wild brooding island fills you with a primal unease. Among your provisions, you carry a goatskin filled with a very special wine. It is a gift from Marin, a priest of Apollo, whose life and family Odysseus spared during the raid on Ismarus. It is a treasure, a divine, unmixed wine, so potent that it is meant to be diluted with 20 parts water before being served. Its fragrance alone is intoxicating. Odysseus brings it not as a weapon, but as a guest gift, a gesture of peace and respect for whomever you might meet. You row across the channel, the water dark and unnervingly deep. As your ship grates against the gravelly shore of the Cyclops' island, the sense of scale is overwhelming. The cliffs tower over your small vessel, casting long, cool shadows that seem to swallow the light. The trees on the hillside seem larger, their leaves are darker green, the spaces between them deeper and more mysterious. Near the shore, you find a cave, a huge gaping mouth in the rock face, its entrance partially enclosed by a rough-hewn stone wall. A wild laurel bush grows over the opening, its dark leaves glossy in the strange light. This, you surmise, is the lair of one of the giants. Odysseus, ever the explorer, decides to wait. He wants to meet the inhabitant of this cave, to engage with him according to the sacred rites of hospitality known as Xenia. You and the other men urge him to reconsider. The cave is filled with the bounty of a shepherd's life. You could take some of the woven baskets of cheese and a few of the young lambs and be gone before the owner returns. It feels like trespassing, like tempting a fate you cannot possibly comprehend. The place has an air of profound ancient danger, but Odysseus is adamant. His desire to meet the Cyclops, to be welcomed as a guest and receive a gift as is the custom, overrides his usual caution. It is a moment of pride, of a hero's insistence on testing the world against his own values, and it is a decision that will have the gravest of consequences. You wait inside the vast, shadowy cave. The air is cool and thick with the smell of damp earth, livestock and spilled milk. In the gloom, you can make out pens of bleating lambs and kids, separated by age. Along the walls, wicker racks are laden with enormous wheels of cheese, slowly hardening in the subterranean air. You light a fire, and its flickering light dances on the rough stone walls, making the shadows writhe and twist like living things. You make an offering to the gods from your supplies, a small prayer for their protection in this unsettling place, and then you sit and you wait. The sound of your own breathing, of a dozen men trying to be silent, seems loud in the immense quiet of the cave. It is a silence that feels heavy, expectant, a silence that is about to be broken in the most terrifying way imaginable. The afternoon light begins to fade from the cave's mouth, and a long shadow falls across the entrance, a shadow so vast it seems to eclipse the sun itself. As the soft amber light of evening begins to fade from the sky, a deep and rhythmic thudding begins to travel through the ground beneath you. It is a sound felt as much as heard, a slow, heavy beat that seems to resonate in your very bones. A vast shadow soon falls across the mouth of the cave, an eclipse that steals the last of the day and plunges your shelter into a profound gloom. Into this opening steps the master of the cave, the Cyclops, Polyphemus. He is a being of staggering scale, less like a man and more like a rugged foothill come to life. His form is immense, a silhouette of raw, untamed power, and set in the center of his weathered face is a single colossal eye, which slowly blinks, adjusting to the dimness of its home. This is a son of Poseidon, a creature born of the earth and the sea, belonging to a primeval age before the neat order of the Olympian gods had fully taken hold. He carries on his shoulder an immense bundle of dry wood, a load so great it would take a score of ordinary men to even shift it from the ground. He lets it fall with a deafening crash, the sound echoing from the deep, damp walls of the cavern, a sharp crack that makes the very air shudder. Then, with a low grunt of effort that seems impossibly small for the task, he turns to the entrance. His hands find purchase on a slab of rock, so enormous that you had barely registered it as a separate object from the mountainside itself. With a grinding, groaning protest of stone against stone, he rolls the colossal boulder into place, sealing the entrance completely. The sound is one of utter finality, a sound that speaks of tombs and prisons. The last sliver of the outside world vanishes, leaving you entombed in the growing dark. You understand with a cold certainty that no mortal strength, not even the combined might of your entire crew, could ever hope to move such a weight. You are trapped. A flicker of light appears as the giant tends to his wood. Soon, a great fire springs to life in the center of the cavern, its hungry flames leaping high and casting a wild, dancing light across the uneven stone surfaces. The blaze illuminates every corner of your hiding place, revealing you and your comrades huddled together against the far wall. The Cyclops' single, unblinking eye turns towards you, its gaze slow and curious, like a farmer inspecting unfamiliar livestock that has wandered into his field. A voice, deep and resonant as an earthquake rumbling far beneath the earth, booms through the space, seeming to press in on you from all sides. He asks who you are, from what land you have sailed, and what your purpose is. He lays out the possibilities known to his world. Are you merchants, plying your trade on the wine-dark sea, or are you pirates, living by the sword and bringing ruin to other men? Drawing on every reserve of his famous composure, Odysseus steps forward from the group, his posture betraying no hint of the fear that must surely grip him. He begins to speak, his voice calm and measured, a small island of civility in this vast, primitive space. He tells the giant of your long and arduous journey, home from the distant shores of Troy, where you fought for 10 years in the service of the great King Agamemnon. He carefully and respectfully invokes the sacred laws of hospitality, the ancient customs of Aeaea, which dictate that a host must offer shelter and a gift to any traveller who comes in peace. These are not merely the traditions of men, he explains, but laws upheld and protected by Zeus himself, the king of the gods. It is a noble appeal, a reminder of the shared values that are meant to bind the civilized world, a plea for recognition and safe passage from one who understands the rules. The Cyclops' response is not with words, but with a harsh barking laugh that is devoid of all humour. The sound is a dismissal, a complete rejection of the world Odysseus has just described. When he speaks, his tone is one of scornful amusement. He calls Odysseus a fool for suggesting he should fear the gods or heed their laws. We Cyclopes, he rumbles, hold no regard for Zeus or his pantheon. We are their betters, far stronger than they. His declaration hangs in the firelit air, a chilling confirmation of your deepest fears. You have sailed beyond the map of your known world, beyond the reach of its gods and its customs. Here, in this cave, the laws of civilization are meaningless. You are utterly at the mercy of a power that does not recognize your existence as anything more than a curiosity. Without any further warning, a hand the size of a small boat's sail darts out and seizes 2 of your companions. The sheer speed and effortlessness of the action is bewildering. In a moment of shocking, unthinking brutality, he swings them against the stone floor. The dreadful sound is sharp and final. Before you can fully process what has happened, he begins his grim meal, tearing them apart and consuming them with a raw, savage hunger. You and your remaining men can only watch, frozen in a state of horrified disbelief. The scene is a waking nightmare, a violation of every natural and divine law you have ever known. The sounds and the firelit images will be etched into your memories for all time. When his terrible repast is finished, the giant lets out a contented sigh, stretches his massive form out upon the cavern floor near the warmth of the fire, and falls into a deep sleep. His snores are like the roar of a great wave breaking on a rocky shore, a rhythmic, monstrous sound that fills the suffocating darkness. In the shadows, Odysseus silently draws his bronze sword, its familiar weight a small comfort in his hand. His mind, always racing, works through the immediate visceral instinct, to creep forward while the monster sleeps and drive the blade deep into his chest, seeking the heart. But even as the thought forms, his peerless intellect sees the fatal flaw in the plan. He stops himself, the polished bronze, catching a faint flicker of firelight. Even if he were to succeed, even if his blade found its mark and ended the life of Polyphemus, your fate would be sealed. You would have avenged your fallen comrades only to die alongside them. The colossal boulder still blocks the entrance, an immovable monument to your helplessness. To slay the giant now would be to turn his cave into your shared tomb, where you would all slowly perish in the foul, stale air. With a heart heavier than any stone, he slides his sword back into its sheath. There is no escape to be won through simple violence. You must endure the night. Huddled together in the oppressive dark, you listen to the terrifying rhythmic breathing of your captor, finding the dreadful silence between each thunderous snore to be the most frightening sound of all. Another plan is needed, one born not of strength, but of cunning. And so, as the giant sleeps, the mind of Odysseus begins to work, searching the darkness for a new kind of weapon. When the grey light of a new day seeps through the cracks around the colossal stone, you feel not a glimmer of hope, but a cold, familiar dread. The dawn brings with it the stirring of the monster, and the horrific ritual of the previous evening is replayed with a chilling lack of ceremony. The Cyclops awakens, his one enormous eye blinking slowly, and his gaze falls upon your huddling group. He reaches out a hand the size of a small boat's sail and plucks two more of your comrades from the floor. Their cries are swallowed by the vastness of the cave and the giant's monstrous appetite. He devours them for his breakfast with the same casual brutality as before, a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with. The number of your small party is dwindling, and the air grows thick with a grief you have no time to process. After his meal, he effortlessly rolls the stone away from the entrance, a brief, tantalizing glimpse of the sunlit world outside. He leads his bleating flocks out to pasture, and then seals the cave again, plunging you back into the gloom. You are left alone with the smell of death and the echoes of your despair. But in the heart of your king, despair has not taken root. Odysseus has not been idle. His mind, the weapon that has always served him best, has been working tirelessly through the suffocating darkness. While you and the others were paralyzed by fear, he was searching, probing the shadows of the cave. His hands found a huge club of green olive wood, left by the giant perhaps to season in the dry air. It is a colossal timber, as large as the mast of a 20-oared ship. It is far too big for any mortal man to wield, but Odysseus sees not a club, but a spear in waiting. He instructs you to help him, and under his quiet direction, you and the remaining men use your bronze swords to saw off a length of it, about a fathom long. The work is grueling, your blades hacking at the dense fibrous wood. Once a section is free, you begin to shape it, taking turns scraping and carving, sharpening one end to a fine, menacing point. Then, following your king's command, you carry the sharpened tip to the embers of the giant's fire. You harden it in the glowing coals, turning it carefully. The green wood hisses and spits, steam curling into the stale air as the point glows a threatening orange, becoming a formidable, fire-hardened weapon. This giant stake, your only hope, you then conceal, burying it in the thick layers of dung that litter the cave floor, hiding it from view. The plan that has formed in Odysseus's mind is simple, and it is born of utter desperation. He gathers the surviving men, his voice a low whisper in the echoing cavern. He explains that he cannot lift and wield the stake alone. He needs help, but he will not order any man to this task. The risk is too great. Instead, he has you draw lots, leaving the choice to fate. You watch as the markers are cast, a small moment of ritual amidst the chaos. The lot falls on 4 of the strongest men among you, the very ones the poet notes that Odysseus would have chosen himself. Your task, should the moment arrive, will be to help your king lift the immense stake and with all your combined strength, drive it into the Cyclops' single vulnerable eye as he sleeps. There is no other way. To kill him outright would be to seal your own tomb, as none of you possess the strength to move the stone at the cave's entrance. You can only maim him, blind him, and pray that this creates an opportunity for escape. The long, terrifying day crawls by. In the evening, the shadow of Polyphemus once again darkens the entrance. He returns with his flocks, his familiar routine, a source of mounting tension. He performs his chores, milking his ewes and goats, the rhythmic sounds echoing unnervingly in the silent cave. And then, for a third and final time, he seizes 2 more of your men for his supper. 6 of your friends are now gone, consumed by the monster. As the giant wipes his greasy lips, a strange calm settles over Odysseus. He steps forward, holding a large ivywood bowl. It is filled with the strong, unmixed wine he brought with him from the ship, a parting gift from a priest of Apollo to the Greeks. Wine was a gift from the gods, a civilizing nectar almost always diluted with water. To drink it neat was considered barbaric, something only a creature like this would do. Cyclops, Odysseus says, his voice steady and clear, holding out the bowl. Since you have made a meal of my men, have some of this wine to wash it down. I want you to taste what kind of drink we carried on our ship. I brought it for you as an offering, hoping you might take pity on us. The giant, greedy and entirely unsuspecting, takes the bowl and drains it in one long draught. The potent, undiluted wine is a shock to his system, unlike anything he has ever tasted. He loves it. He bellows for another bowl, and then a third. He drinks them all in quick succession, the powerful spirit working fast upon his simple mind. The powerful drink begins to fuddle his senses, and in his drunken state, he promises Odysseus a traditional guest gift, a dark and twisted version of the sacred custom. I will eat you last, after all your friends. He slurs, his voice a terrifying rumble. That will be my gift to you, but first, tell me your name. And here, in this moment of extreme peril, Odysseus deploys the master stroke of his plan, a trick of language as sharp as any sword. My name, he says, his voice ringing with a strange clarity in the fire-lit cave, is Nobody. My mother and father and all my friends call me Nobody. The Cyclops, his mind clouded by the wine, grunts in what sounds like satisfaction. The name means nothing to him. He lurches to his feet, stumbles, and then collapses onto the cave floor, falling into a deep, drunken sleep, his snores like the sound of a great forge. This is your chance. You and the others retrieve the olive-wood stake from its hiding place. You thrust the sharp tip deep into the heart of the fire, holding it there until it is glowing a fierce, menacing red. With a silent prayer for strength, you and the 4 chosen men lift the immense fiery spear. You position it directly over the giant's single sleeping eye. Odysseus, bracing himself from above, puts his full weight onto the end of the stake and begins to turn it like a shipwright drilling a hole in a ship's timber. The eye hisses and sizzles upon contact with the burning wood. An awful smell of burnt flesh fills the air. The giant lets out a deafening roar of pure agony, a sound so loud it feels as though it might bring the roof of the cave down upon you. He thrashes wildly, pulling the smouldering stake from his face with a terrible scream. He is blinded, and his cries are the most terrifying sound you have ever heard. In the neighboring caves, the other Cyclopes are woken by his bellows. They gather outside the boulder that seals his entrance. What is wrong, Polyphemus? They shout through the stone. Why do you wake us with such cries? Is someone trying to... Your escape from the Cyclops' cave is a masterpiece of quiet desperation. As the grey light of dawn seeps into the cavern, the blinded Polyphemus groans, rolling back the immense stone door to let his flocks out to pasture. He settles himself in the entrance, a wounded mountain of a creature, his arms spread wide to form a living gate. His plan is simple. He will feel the back of every animal as it passes, ensuring that while his sheep may leave, his tormentors will not. Odysseus, ever the strategist, has spent the darkest hours preparing. He has lashed the largest rams together in threes, using supple willow withes. Beneath the belly of each central ram, one of your comrades is now securely tied, concealed within the thick wool. You are one of them. your body pressed against the warm flank of the animal, the world reduced to the smell of lanolin and damp earth. For himself, Odysseus chooses the finest ram of the flock, a magnificent beast with a fleece so deep it could hide a king. He works his fingers into its underside and hangs on, his life entrusted to the steady gait of a sheep. The procession begins. You feel the ram you are bound to start walking, a gentle rocking motion. As you approach the entrance, you sense the cool morning breeze replacing the stale cavern air. You hold your breath. The giant's colossal hands, rough as bark, pass over the ram's back, just inches above you. They are surprisingly gentle with the animal, a strange tenderness from a creature of such violence. He pats the lead ram carrying Odysseus, and you hear his voice, a low rumble of sorrow, wondering aloud why his favorite is lagging behind. He muses that the ram must be grieving for its master's ruined eye. The profound irony hangs in the air as he lets the animal pass, and with it, your captain. One by one, your trios of sheep walk through the deadly gate, a silent, surreal parade carrying the last survivors back into the light. Once clear of the cave, you are untied. You work quickly, herding the best of the Cyclops' flock down to the shore where your ship waits. The relief is so immense it is almost a physical weight. You board, push off from the cursed beach, and row with purpose out into the calm, grey sea. It is only when you are what seems a safe distance away that Odysseus, his pride stinging, makes a decision that will alter your entire voyage home. He stands at the prow, and in a voice that carries clearly across the water, shouts his true name to the shore. He tells the giant that if anyone should ask who put out his eye, he must say it was Odysseus, son of Laertes, from the island of Ithaca. Polyphemus hears. His roar of fury seems to shake the island's foundations. In his blind rage, he wrenches the top from a mountain and hurls the colossal boulder towards your ship. It lands just ahead of your prow, and the sea erupts. A monstrous wave lifts your vessel, pushing it powerfully back towards the shore. You and your comrades row with every ounce of remaining strength, fighting the pull of the angry water. The giant, now armed with the name of his foe, raises his hands to the sky and prays aloud to his father, the mighty Poseidon. He begs that Odysseus of Ithaca never see his home again, or if the fates have decreed his return, that he should arrive late, broken, stripped of all his companions, and find only sorrow in his own house. In the vastness of the ocean, the sea god hears his son's prayer. The water around you seems to grow colder, the currents more treacherous. You sail onward, the curse of Poseidon now a silent passenger aboard your ship. After many days you arrive at the island of Aeaea, a place that appears to float upon the waves encircled by a sheer unbroken wall of gleaming bronze. This is the domain of Aeolus, a mortal man whom the gods have made the keeper of the winds. He welcomes you with a grace and hospitality that soothes your weary souls. For an entire month, you are his honored guests. You feast in his halls and rest in soft beds, slowly recovering from the horrors of the cave. Odysseus, a masterful storyteller, recounts the long war at Troy and the troubles of your journey. Aeolus listens, utterly captivated. When the time comes for you to depart, your host bestows upon Odysseus a truly remarkable gift. He presents him with a large, supple bag crafted from the hide of a 9-year-old ox. Into this bag, Aeolus corrals all the blustering, contrary winds of the world. He binds them all tightly within the leather with a silver cord, leaving only one wind free, Zephyrus, the gentle west wind. Its sole task is to blow steadily at your backs, pushing your ships on a direct and unerring course for Ithaca. It is a perfect, foolproof solution, a divine guarantee of safe passage. With this magical tailwind, your journey home is impossibly swift. For 9 days and 9 nights, you sail without incident, the west wind filling your sails. On the morning of the 10th day, the impossible happens. You see land, not just any land, but the familiar, beloved coastline of Ithaca. You are so close you can make out the smoke rising from hearths, the distant shapes of men tending beacon fires on the hills. Your 10-year ordeal is finally over. Odysseus, who has not slept for the entire voyage, who has held the tiller himself to ensure no deviation from the course, at last allows exhaustion to claim him. He lies down, just for a moment, his home in sight. It is in this moment, with your goal so near, that a murmur of discontent ripples through the crew. Your comrades have been eyeing the heavy leather bag, poisoned by suspicion and greed. They have convinced themselves that it contains a fortune in gold and silver, a personal gift to the king from which they are excluded. While their captain sleeps the sleep of the utterly exhausted, they gather around the bag. Their curiosity, stoked by envy, gets the better of them. They loosen the silver cord. The result is instantaneous and catastrophic. All the winds of the world burst forth in a single furious explosion. A tempest of competing gales screams out from the bag, a hurricane of your own making. The ships are spun around, the sails torn to ribbons. You are thrown backwards away from the shores of Ithaca, driven out into the open sea by a storm of unimaginable ferocity. All you can do is hold on as you are swept away from your home, further and faster than you had come. The winds carry you all the way back across the sea, eventually depositing your battered ships under a grey and unforgiving sky right back at the floating island of Aeolia. Ashamed and defeated, you approach the bronze walls once more. You row on from the island of the winds, your arms burning with a familiar fire, your hearts heavier than any stone anchor. For 6 days and 6 nights you toil at the oars, a grim rhythmic penance for a moment of foolish curiosity. The gift that would have blown you home has been squandered, its memory now a bitter gust of regret. The easy path is gone, replaced by the endless, back-breaking labour of pulling your heavy timbered ship through the flat, indifferent sea. On the 7th day, as the sun climbs into a pale sky, a new coastline resolves itself from the haze. You have reached Telepolis, the lofty city in the land of the Lestrygonians. The entrance to the harbour is a geological marvel, a place that seems sculpted by a divine hand. It is an almost perfect circle of water, clasped on all sides by steep, sheer cliffs that rise like fortress walls. The only way in or out is through a single narrow channel, a tight passage just wide enough for one ship to pass at a time. Inside this natural basin, the water is unnaturally calm, its surface a sheet of dark, polished glass, as though no wind has ever dared to disturb its profound peace. To your weary shipmates on the other vessels, it looks like the perfect sanctuary, the safest place in the world to rest. One by one, the captains of the other 11 ships, their judgment clouded by fatigue, steer their vessels through the narrow gap. They glide into the deep, protected bowl of the harbour, mooring their ships close together, a small, trusting fleet nestled in the heart of the cove. They make fast their mooring lines to the sheer rock face, confident in the absolute security of their position. But on your ship, Odysseus hesitates. Perhaps it is a flicker of his hard-won caution, or a darker premonition that coils in his gut. He feels a deep unease about this place that seems too perfect, too safe. He orders your own ship to remain outside the harbour's embrace, tying it to a jagged rock just beyond the entrance, where the open sea is still a visible promise. From your vantage point, you can observe the profound stillness of the place. It is undeniably beautiful, but also strangely and unnervingly lifeless. There are no signs of cultivated land, no terraced fields or olive groves clinging to the slopes. You see no evidence of human work, no fishing nets drying on the shore, no boatyards, no wharves. The only hint of habitation is the sight of thin plumes of smoke rising from the forested hills that crown the cliffs, faint grey threads unspooling into the blue air. Following his custom, Odysseus selects a small scouting party, a herald and 2 of your comrades, and sends them inland to discover what kind of people might live in this silent, imposing land. The 3 men follow a track worn into the earth, heading towards the distant smoke. Before long, their path intersects with that of a young woman coming to draw water from the spring of Artacia. She is of a tremendous size, her stature making your sturdy, war-hardened companions seem like children beside her. She is, they learn, the daughter of the king. Despite her startling appearance, she is surprisingly courteous, her voice calm, as she points them towards her father's great house. The men continue on their way, their initial apprehension soothed by this civil, if giant, encounter. But when they step across the threshold of the palace, that hope is instantly and horrifically extinguished. They are met by the sight of the queen, a woman as tall as a mountain peak, a figure so monstrously vast that they freeze in sheer terror. Without a word, she seizes one of the 3 scouts, her intentions brutally clear. The other 2 men turn and flee, their hearts pounding against their ribs, a scream of horror caught in their throats. The giant queen raises a cry, a sound that echoes like a war horn from the hills, and her husband, Antiphates, the king of the Laestrygonians, comes rushing out, followed by his subjects. They pour from the city in a great torrent, and you see that they are not men of normal size. They are a nation of giants, an entire civilization of monstrous man-eating beings. They swarm to the tops of the cliffs that encircle the harbour, their immense forms silhouetted against the sky. From this commanding vantage point, they begin their assault, prizing massive boulders from the cliff tops and hurling them down upon the 11 ships trapped below. The sound is a continuous, deafening thunderclap that rolls across the water. For you, watching from Odysseus's ship outside the cliffs, it is a scene of helpless, sickening horror. You see the rocks, huge as houses, crashing through the decks and hulls of your sister ships, splintering the stout pine and oak into kindling. The beautiful, calm harbour becomes a churning cauldron of destruction and death. You hear the sharp crack of masts snapping, the splintering of wood, and the shouts of your comrades turning into thin cries of terror and agony. The Laestrygonians then clamber down to the water's edge. They begin to spear the men struggling in the water as if they were fishing, hoisting their grisly catch from the churning, blood-stained sea to carry them off for a hideous feast. In the space of a few dreadful minutes, 11 ships and all their crews are gone. Your entire fleet, save for your single lonely vessel, is utterly annihilated. Odysseus, seeing the full scope of the catastrophe, does not hesitate. His face is a mask of grim resolve as he draws his sharp bronze sword and slashes through the thick mooring ropes that hold your ship to the rock. He screams at you and the other men, his voice raw with anguish and command, to row for your lives. You need no second telling. You pull at the heavy oars with a frantic, desperate strength born of pure terror, your minds numb with shock and grief. Your ship lurches forward, shooting out of the channel and into the relative safety of the open sea, the only one to escape the slaughterhouse. You sail away, not daring to look back at the place of ambush. You have escaped with your lone black-hulled ship glides onward, a silent vessel carrying a heavy cargo of grief. The sea, once a familiar companion, now feels vast and empty. The world has shrunk to this single wooden craft and the small band of survivors you call your comrades. You are utterly, profoundly alone. After days adrift under a pale, indifferent sky, the faint outline of land appears. This is the island of Aeaea, a place of deep, primordial green, rising from the sea as if in a dream. You find a sheltered harbour and beach your ship upon the soft sand. For 2 days and 2 nights you do nothing, surrendering to a bone-deep exhaustion. The sorrows of the Laestrygonians are too fresh, the loss of your fleet too immense to comprehend. On the morning of the 3rd day, Odysseus rises. A familiar resolve has returned to his eyes. Taking his bronze-tipped spear, he walks inland, climbing a rocky outcrop that offers a view over the island. He surveys a world of trees, a dense, unbroken canopy of oak and alder. There are no signs of cultivation, no fields or pastures. There is only one anomaly in this wild landscape, a single, slender plume of smoke, rising lazily into the still air from a clearing deep within the forest. He returns to the shore and gathers you all. His voice is low but steady as he reminds you that while you still draw breath, the story is not yet over. He proposes a cautious plan. Your small company is split into 2 equal groups. He will command one, while a nobleman named Eurylochus, a kinsman of his, will lead the other. A helmet is brought, and into it are placed 2 marked pebbles, a simple method of letting the gods decide your fate. You hold your breath, as Odysseus shakes the helmet. The lot falls to Eurylochus. You watch as he gathers his 22 men, their faces a mixture of apprehension and duty. With a final glance back towards the safety of the ship, they turn and walk into the tree line, disappearing into the deep green silence of the woods. A familiar sense of dread settles over you as you wait by the ship, the quiet of the forest pressing in thick and watchful. Deeper within the island, Eurylochus and his men navigate the ancient woods, following the faint trail of smoke. They eventually emerge into a sun-dappled clearing, and there, before them, stands a house built of smooth, polished stones, unexpected in such a wild place. But it is the life surrounding the dwelling that is truly strange. Mountain lions and great grey wolves roam the grounds, yet they show no aggression. As your comrades approach, these powerful predators come towards them with an unnerving gentleness, fawning over the men like household dogs, their golden eyes full of a peculiar, pleading light. Your friends are deeply unsettled by this unnatural docility. As they hesitate at the gate, a sound drifts from within the house, arresting them completely. It is a woman's voice, singing as she works. The melody is impossibly beautiful, weaving through the air with an enchanting, almost divine quality. Peering through the gateway, they can just make out a magnificent loom, where a shimmering, celestial fabric is being woven. One of the men, Polites, argues that any being capable of producing such a heavenly sound cannot possibly mean them harm. Persuaded by his logic and captivated by the music, the others agree, all except Eurylochus. A cautious man by nature, he senses a carefully laid trap beneath the beautiful surface. The men call out, their voices tentative in the enchanted air. The singing stops. The heavy wooden door swings open, and a woman appears. She is tall and majestic, her beauty as breathtaking as her voice. This is Circe, a goddess among mortals, her long hair braided with threads of gold. A warm, welcoming smile plays on her lips as she invites them to enter her home. Charmed by her grace and reassured by her hospitality, the men eagerly follow her inside, their fears forgotten. They cross the stone threshold, all save one. The ever-suspicious Eurylochus hangs back, concealing himself in the shadows of the trees to watch and wait. Inside, Circe treats your comrades as honored guests. She leads them to ornate chairs and high-backed couches, draped with fine purple linens. She then prepares for them a rich posset, a mixture of freshly grated cheese, golden barley meal, and fragrant honey, all stirred into a strong, dark Pramnian wine. It is a comforting and delicious brew, and the men, weary from their journey, accept it gratefully. But mixed into this seemingly kind offering is a wicked, colorless drug. As soon as the last man has drained his cup, the goddess's demeanor changes. She strikes each man with a slender wand, and in an instant, a horrific transformation begins. Their bodies shrink and twist, coarse bristles sprout from their skin, and their faces elongate into the snouts of swine. They are turned into pigs, yet their minds remain human, a final cruel twist of the spell. They are trapped within these new grotesque forms, able to understand their fate, but unable to speak as she herds them into a pigsty and contemptuously throws them acorns and chestnuts to eat. Outside, Eurylochus waits. An hour passes, then another. His men do not reappear. A terrible fear grips him, and he finally flees, rushing back through the darkening woods, his heart pounding. He stumbles back to the ship, his face pale and streaked with tears, his voice choked with panic. He tells Odysseus what he saw, the strange, tame beasts, the beautiful goddess, and how his men walked through her door and vanished as if swallowed by the earth. He is utterly convinced they have met a terrible end. He falls to his knees, begging Odysseus to raise the sail and flee this cursed island immediately, to abandon the lost men to their fate. But Odysseus will not hear of it. To leave his men behind is an unthinkable betrayal. He calmly slings his silver-studded sword over his shoulder and takes up his bow. He tells Eurylochus to guide him back to the house. Eurylochus recoils in horror, refusing to go near that place again, pleading with Odysseus not to throw his own life away. Seeing the genuine terror in his kinsman's eyes, Odysseus relents. He tells him to stay with the ship, but that he himself is bound by duty and honor to go, and so he turns his back on the sea, and sets off alone into the silent forest, walking steadily towards the plume of smoke, towards the house of the sorceress. Its solitary figure disappears into the twilight, leaving you to wait by the shore, listening to the whisper of the trees and the endless murmur of the sea. As he walks deeper into the woods, a shadow detaches itself from the trees, and a young man with a golden wand steps into his path. As your captain makes his way alone through the shadowy woods, a profound quiet settles among the trees. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and unknown blossoms, feels ancient and watchful. It is here, in this hushed domain, that he is met by a figure who seems to radiate a gentle light of his own. He appears as a beautiful young man with a kindness in his eyes that belies an immense power. In his hand he carries a slender golden wand, not as a weapon, but as an emblem of his office. This is no mortal youth, but the god Hermes, the swift messenger of Olympus. He has been sent by Zeus himself, a direct intervention from the king of the gods, to offer your captain a way through the peril that awaits. Hermes speaks in a voice that is both calming and clear, warning Odysseus of Circe's beguiling magic. To counter her formidable power, the god reveals a secret of the earth. He stoops and plucks a plant from the dark soil, telling your captain its name is moly. It is an unassuming herb, yet divine in its properties. Its root is as black as a starless night, while its flower is a pure, luminous white. Hermes explains that it is a perilous thing for any mortal to pull from the ground, but for the gods, all things are possible. This small, potent flower is now Odysseus's shield. The messenger god then lays out a precise plan. Odysseus must accept Circe's hospitality and drink the potion she offers. The moly, held close, will render her concoction harmless. When she sees her spell has failed and tries to strike him with her wand, that is the moment he must act. He is to draw his bronze sword and rush at her, not with true intent to harm, but with a show of force so convincing it will shatter her confidence. She will be terrified, Hermes assures him, and in her fear will invite him to her bed to seal a truce. Your captain must not refuse, for it is the path to your salvation. But first, he must make her swear a great and binding oath by the names of the gods, an unbreakable promise that she will plot no more harm against him or any of his men. With these instructions and the sacred herb, Odysseus continues his journey, and everything unfolds just as Hermes foretold. He reaches the polished stone house, where the goddess Circe greets him with a bewitching smile. She mixes a potion into a cup of sweet wine and offers it to him. He drinks it down, the magic of the moly coursing through him, a silent, invisible antidote. Circe then taps him with her long, slender wand and commands him to join his friends in the sty, but your captain remains standing unchanged, his mind clear and his human form intact. Seeing the shock in her eyes, he seizes the moment. He draws his sword, its bronze blade gleaming, and lunges towards her as if to strike. The powerful sorceress cries out and falls to her knees, her divine composure utterly broken. Through her terror, a flicker of recognition dawns. She knows, now, that he must be the famed Odysseus of Ithaca, whose arrival had been prophesied to her long ago. She swears the solemn oath he demands, and with your safety now guaranteed, Odysseus allows her to lead him into the inner sanctums of her palace. Later, her handmaidens, nymphs of the streams and woods, prepare a magnificent feast. Yet as the platters are laid out, laden with roasted meats and soft bread, your captain sits in silence. He does not eat or drink, his mind filled with the image of you, his loyal comrades trapped in the bodies of swine. Circe, perceptive, and now perhaps remorseful, sees his deep sorrow and asks what troubles him. He tells her plainly that he can feel no joy while his men are penned up like animals. Taking his words to heart, Circe takes a vial of a different ointment and goes to the pigsty. One by one, she anoints each of the pigs. As the balm touches their skin, a wondrous transformation begins. The coarse bristles recede, limbs stretch and reform, and slowly, miraculously, you rise up as men once more, but you are not as you were. The ordeal has been washed away, and in its place, the goddess's magic has left a gift. You are younger, taller, and more handsome than before. You recognize your captain, and a great wave of emotion washes over the entire company. You weep with joy and relief, crowding around Odysseus, and the reunion is so heartfelt that even the powerful Circe feels a stirring of pity. The goddess then tells Odysseus to return to the shore, haul his ship onto the land, and bring the rest of his crew back to her house, so that you may all rest. He walks back to you at the ship, and when you see him emerge from the woods, alive and unharmed, you are overcome with a relief so profound it feels as though you have finally reached the shores of Ithaca itself. He tells you of Circe's change of heart and invites you all to be her guests. The promise of food, shelter, and safety is a siren call to your weary souls, and most are eager to follow. Only Eurylochus, his heart still shadowed by suspicion, speaks out. He reminds everyone of the Cyclops' cave and how Odysseus' daring curiosity led to the deaths of 6 good men. He warns that this is surely another trap, that the sorceress is merely luring you all to your doom. His words are sharp and mutinous, and for a moment a dangerous anger flashes in your captain's eyes, but you hold him back, calming his rage. In the end, even Eurylochus, fearing being left alone on the haunted shore, reluctantly follows the rest of you to Circe's enchanted home. And so begins a strange and timeless chapter in your long journey. You become the honored guests of the sorceress, living within her magical halls. The days blur into a pleasant rhythm of ease and comfort. You feast on food that never runs out and drink wine that refills itself in the cup. You bathe in warm, scented water and sleep in soft, deep beds, the first true rest you have known in years. The constant hardships of the sea, the gnawing hunger, and the visceral horrors you have witnessed begin to fade, replaced by a gentle, dreamlike contentment. The island of Aeaea feels like a place outside of the world, a pocket of enchantment where time itself seems to slow. A month passes, then 2. The seasons turn, but you barely notice. The burning desire to return home, which once drove your every action, dwindles to a faint ember. An entire year slips by in this haze of comfort, a willing, shared state of forgetfulness. Your journey is paused, suspended in the golden, timeless hospitality of a goddess. But even in this enchanted sanctuary, the memory of a full year drifts by on the island of Aeaea, a year that feels both like a lifetime and a single sun-drenched afternoon. Under the enchanting influence of the goddess Circe, the sharp edges of your past hardships have softened. The days are filled with feasting and rest, the nights with storytelling and sweet wine. The memory of home, of Penelope and Telemachus, has become a distant, watercolor image, its colors muted by present contentment. You and your shipmates have been living in a waking dream, a gentle stupor from which no one has had the will to rouse themselves. But even the most potent magic cannot entirely erase a decade of longing. One quiet evening, as the sky over the island deepens to a soft violet, your comrades finally come to you. The spell, it seems, has begun to fray. They speak not with anger, but with a rediscovered sense of purpose, their voices low and earnest. They remind you of the rocky shores of Ithaca, of the families they left behind, of the journey that is still unfinished, and just like that, the enchantment shatters. The longing for home, held at bay for 12 long months, rushes back into your heart with the force of a tidal wave. That same night, you seek out Circe in her luminous halls. You tell her, your voice heavy with the weight of your revived duty, that it is time for you and your men to leave. Circe listens with an ancient, knowing calm. There is no anger in her eyes, only a deep understanding of mortal hearts. She is a goddess, and she knows that you cannot hold a man like Odysseus against his will forever. His very essence is defined by his quest for home. She agrees to your departure, but she tells you that the path to Ithaca is not a straight line drawn across the sea. Before you can turn your ship towards your final destination, there is another, far more daunting voyage that must be undertaken. You must sail to the very edge of the world, to the shadowy realm that belongs to Hades and his queen, Persephone. There, in the land of the dead, you must seek the counsel of one particular spirit, the soul of Tiresias, the blind prophet of Thebes. Even in death, his mind is clear, his foresight untouched. Only Tiresias, Circe explains, can chart the true course for you, revealing the hidden dangers that still lie in wait and the path you must follow to finally see your homeland again. This is not a suggestion, it is a necessity, an unavoidable step in your protracted journey. The news lands upon you and your crewmates with a crushing physical weight. Despair, cold and absolute, seeps into your bones. A journey across the sea of the living is fraught with enough peril to break the strongest of men. A deliberate voyage into the land of the dead is a fate from which you believe no mortal has ever returned. It feels like a death sentence. You weep openly, the sound of your grief echoing the weariness that has settled deep within your souls. But Circe does not leave you to your fear. With the same precision she uses to weave her spells, she gives you clear, meticulous instructions. She describes how to navigate to the very edge of the world, to the land where the great river of ocean, the stream that encircles the earth, flows back into itself. There, on a desolate, forgotten shore, you will find a grove sacred to Persephone, and you must perform a solemn ritual to summon the spirits of the departed from their sunless eternity. The journey is not one of brute force, but of careful, sacred observance. She details the rites you must perform. Upon reaching the prescribed location, you are to dig a trench, a cubit long and a cubit wide. Into this small chasm in the earth, you must pour a sequence of libations, offerings to all the dead. First, a mixture of milk and honey, then a measure of sweet wine, and finally pure water. Over these liquids, you must sprinkle a fine layer of white barley. Then comes the most vital part of the ritual. You must sacrifice 2 sheep, a ram and a black ewe, turning their heads towards the dark realm of Erebus as you do so. Their dark blood must be allowed to drain directly into the trench. This offering of life, Circe explains, is what the listless, powerless shades of the dead crave above all else. The scent of the blood will draw them up from the depths, and they will swarm towards the trench, desperate for a taste that will grant them a moment of consciousness, a fleeting memory of being alive. You are warned to stand guard with your bronze sword drawn, to hold back the throng of whispering spirits until the one you seek, the prophet Tiresias, makes his appearance. Only he must be permitted to drink from the blood. Once he has, his prophetic mind will be reawakened, and he will speak the unvarnished truth of what lies ahead. The next morning, a heavy silence hangs over your preparations. The usual sounds of a crew readying a ship are muted, each man lost in his own private fears. As you are about to cast off the mooring lines, a grim discovery is made. One of the youngest members of your crew, a man named Elpenor, is missing. He was not known for his great strength or cunning, but for a certain thoughtlessness. The previous night, heavy with wine, he had climbed onto the flat roof of Circe's palace to sleep in the cool night air. Awoken this morning by the noise of your imminent departure, he had sprung to his feet in a disoriented haze. Forgetting he was on a roof, he made a fatal misstep, missing the long ladder completely. He fell, landing with a sickening crack that broke his neck instantly. In the sober rush to leave this enchanted and now dreaded island, no one had noticed his absence. His unburied, unmourned spirit, you will soon discover, has not been left behind. It has already begun its journey ahead of you to the very place you are now forced to sail. You push off from the shore of Aeaea and unfurl your sail. As if by the goddess's design, a strange and steady wind immediately fills the canvas, a wind that requires no work from you at the rudder or the ropes. It is a divine escort, sent by Circe to guide you on this most unnatural of voyages. For a full day, your black ship glides effortlessly across the wine-dark sea, heading towards the setting sun. As daylight finally fades, you do not enter a world of moon and starlight, but something else entirely. You sail into a realm of perpetual twilight, a place of permanent dusk. You have reached the land of the Cimmerians, a people who live their lives shrouded in an eternal, oppressive mist. Here, The sun never pierces the thick clouds to cast its light upon the earth. This is the outer rim of the world, the bleak and silent gateway to the underworld. You pull your ship onto the misty beach, and moving like men in a dream, you follow Circe's instructions to the letter. You find the place she described, a rocky outcrop where the river of fire and the river of grief converge and flow into the waters of Acheron. Here, you dig the trench. You pour the libations, watching as the milk and honey, the wine and the water, soak into the dark earth. You perform the sacrifice, and the dark blood of the sheep pools in the trench, a stark, living stain upon the lifeless ground. You stand guard, your sword gleaming faintly in the gloom, your heart a cold drum against your ribs. The air, already cool, plummets. At the edge of the world, where the perpetual mists of the Cimmerians shroud the sun, the ritual is complete. The trench you have dug at the entrance to the land of the dead is filled with the dark, life-giving blood of the sacrificed sheep. Around you, the air grows colder, thick with a silent anticipation. From the gloom of Erebus, the spirits of the dead begin to gather, drawn by the scent of life they so desperately crave. They are like shadows, like withered leaves rustling in a wind you cannot feel, their whispers too faint for your mortal ears. They cluster around the trench, a silent, yearning crowd, but your king, Odysseus, stands firm, his bronze sword held ready to keep them at bay. He must wait for the one he came here to find. The first spirit that dares to drift closer is a painful, familiar sight. It is Elpenor, the youngest of your comrades, the one who, in a drunken haze, fell from the roof of Circe's palace. It seems a lifetime ago, yet it was only yesterday. His shade has outpaced your ship, arriving here in the underworld before his body has even been given its final rites. He recognizes Odysseus, and a voice like the sighing of wind through dry reeds speaks his name. He tells the story of his foolish end, and begs your king not to sail away and leave him unburied, a forgotten soul destined to wander the shores of Hades in eternal unrest. He asks for the dignity of a funeral. When you return to the island of Aeaea, he pleads, you must burn his body with his armor, build a mound of earth over his ashes, and plant his oar at the very top. It is a simple seaman's memorial, a marker, so that future travelers might know that a man who loved the sea rests there. Odysseus, his heart aching with pity for the young man, and a heavy sense of guilt, gives his solemn promise. As Elpenor's shade withdraws, another figure materializes from the throng. It is a woman, her form noble even in this grey diminished state. As she draws nearer, Odysseus recoils, a sharp intake of breath revealing his shock and profound grief. It is his own mother, Anticlea. He had no idea that she had passed away. When he sailed for Troy a decade ago, she was vibrant and strong. To see her here, a cold and witless shade among the dead, is a blow more cruel than any storm. Tears well in his eyes, tracing paths through the grime on his face. His every instinct screams to reach out, to speak to her, to hold her. Yet he cannot. Circe's instructions were absolute. No spirit must drink from the blood until the prophet has spoken. With an act of almost unbearable discipline, Odysseus holds his mother's ghost back with the flat of his sword, his face a mask of sorrowful resolve. She drifts before him, a stranger not yet able to recognize the son for whom she waits. At last, the shade he has been waiting for emerges from the depths. The great prophet, Tiresias of Thebes, approaches. Even as a spirit, he carries an air of authority, holding a golden scepter that seems to capture what little light exists in this place. His eyes are blank, for he was blind in life, but you sense a deeper sight within him, one that pierces the veil of time itself. Odysseus steps aside, lowering his sword to allow the seer to approach the trench. Tiresias leans down and drinks deeply from the pool of dark blood. As he does, a flicker of awareness returns to his form. He stands tall, and when he speaks, his voice is no longer a whisper, but a clear, resonant tone that cuts through the silence of the underworld. His prophecy begins. He confirms what your king already feared. The journey home will be fraught with peril, for the sea god Poseidon has not forgotten the blinding of his son, the Cyclops Polyphemus. The Earthshaker's rage will follow you across the waves, yet Tiresias offers a sliver of hope. You may still reach Ithaca, he says, but only if you and your men can master your own recklessness, your own desires. He then gives a very specific and solemn warning. Your travels will bring you to the island of Threne, Aeaea, a place of unnaturally green pastures. There you will find the sacred herds of the sun god, Helios cattle and sheep of a celestial beauty, which graze untouched by mortals. You must sail past them. Under no circumstances, the prophet insists, are you or your men to harm a single one of these animals. If you leave them untouched, you will all, after many more trials, see your homes again. But if you give in to hunger and lay a hand upon them, he foresees nothing but destruction, the loss of your ship, and the death of your entire crew. Odysseus alone might survive, but he would be cast adrift for years, eventually returning home, late, broken, and on a stranger's ship, only to find his house overrun by arrogant men. The prophet's words hang in the dead air, a terrible weight of responsibility settling squarely upon your king's shoulders. The fate of every man on his ship rests on his ability to command and control them. Having delivered his grim forecast, the shade of Tiresias seems to fade, his purpose fulfilled, and he recedes back into the endless darkness from which he came. Now that his primary duty is done, Odysseus turns back to the waiting spirit of his mother. He gestures with his sword, allowing her to drink from the trench. As the blood touches her lips, her eyes clear, and memory floods back into her ghostly form. She sees him, truly sees him, and speaks his name with a mother's love and sorrow. In their mournful conversation, she explains that she did not die of old age or sickness, but from a broken heart, worn away by years of relentless grief and longing for her lost son, waiting. She brings him news from the home he has not seen in 2 decades. His father, Laertes, has abandoned the palace for a simple, solitary life on his farm, consumed by mourning. His son, Telemachus, is now a man, capably guarding the estate, and his wife, Penelope, remains steadfast in her loyalty, her days spent weeping and watching the sea forever. Overwhelmed by a fresh wave of love and loss, Odysseus reaches out to embrace her. 3 times he tries to wrap his arms around her familiar form, and 3 times they pass through her as if she were nothing more than a shadow or a wisp of smoke. The agony of this intangible reunion is immense. It is here, in this moment of impossible closeness, that he learns a fundamental truth of the afterlife. Once the fires of the funeral pyre have consumed the flesh and bone, the soul flits away like a dream, an echo of its former self, forever beyond the touch of the living. After his mother's shade departs, a slow procession of other spirits drifts forward. You leave the underworld behind, its sorrowful whispers fading as your black-hulled ship cuts through the deep blue waters of the living world once more. The sunlight feels warmer on your skin, the salt spray more real. Your hearts, however, remain heavy, burdened by the weight of prophecy and the pale, fleeting faces of the dead. You are sailing back to Aeaea, the island of the sorceress Circe, to keep a promise. There, on the familiar shore, you find the body of your fallen comrade Elpenor. He was not slain by a Cyclops' rage nor lost in a storm, but taken by a simple, unfortunate accident, a fall from a roof in a wine-induced haze. His spirit's plea from the land of the dead still echoes in your minds. With quiet reverence, you carry him to the island's highest headland, a place overlooking the endless sea that became his final home. You perform the solemn funeral rites, the ancient rituals that ensure a soul's peaceful passage. You build a burial mound of earth and stone, a lasting marker of a life lived. And at its very peak, as he had requested, you plant his oar, the tool of his trade, the symbol of his life as a mariner, now a silent, weathered monument against the sky. It is a moment of profound stillness, a final, dutiful farewell to a man whose journey ended so unexpectedly. Circe welcomes you back, not as a foe but as a host who understands the gravity of your journey. She has seen you return from a place few mortals ever glimpse, and her respect for Odysseus has deepened. Her handmaidens bring forth bread and roasted meats, and fill your cups with the dark, sweet wine of her island. As you replenish your strength, she sits with your king, her voice low and serious. She knows the prophecies of the blind seer Tiresias, but where he offered stark outlines of your fate, Circe provides the practical, perilous details. She speaks of the path ahead as a gauntlet, a series of trials you must navigate with perfect precision. The first of these trials, she explains, lies just ahead, the island of the Sirens. These are not the half-fish mermaids of later tales, but something more ancient, with the bodies of birds and the heads of women. They dwell not in the water, but in a soft green meadow that looks deceptively peaceful from the sea. This meadow, she warns, is littered with the pale, whitening bones of sailors who have heard their song and perished. Their power is not in physical strength, but in the irresistible magic of their voices. Their song is a sound so enchanting, so deeply and personally alluring, that any man who hears it is immediately lost. He will forget his home, his family, his purpose, and feel an overwhelming compulsion to steer his ship towards the sound, crashing upon the jagged rocks that guard their island. Yet Circe, in her wisdom, offers not just a warning but a strategy. She presents Odysseus with a large golden cake of beeswax, still smelling faintly of honey and summer flowers. She instructs him to soften it in the sun's warmth, and then to plug the ears of every man in his crew. The wax will create a barrier of silence, rendering you deaf to their fatal melody. But Odysseus, ever hungry for knowledge, wishes to hear the legendary song and live to tell the tale. For him, Circe has a different instruction. He must be bound to the mast of the ship, tied hand and foot with heavy ropes, so tightly that he is utterly immobilized, and you, his crew, must swear a solemn oath not to release him, no matter how desperately he pleads. The next morning, you set sail. As the ship glides towards the Sirens' island, you follow Circe's instructions to the letter. You watch as Odysseus takes the beeswax and works it between his strong hands, the sun's warmth making it soft and pliable. He then moves from man to man, his expression grim, and presses the softened wax firmly into your ears. A strange and sudden silence descends. The world once filled with the rhythmic creak of the oars and the whisper of the waves is gone. All you can hear is the muffled drum of your own heart. With your hearing sealed, you turn to your captain. He stands resolute before the great timber mast. You take the thick coils of rope and bind him to it, winding them around his chest, his waist, and his legs, pulling the knots tight until he is a part of the ship itself. He tests the bonds, then looks at you, his command given not with his voice, which you cannot hear, but with a hard, determined set of his jaw. You bend to your oars, your world reduced to this silent, shared labor. As your ship draws level with the island, you see it, a beautiful green isle shimmering in the heat, and you see the change come over Odysseus. His eyes widen, his body tenses, straining against the unyielding ropes. He is hearing the song. For you, there is only silence, but you witness its power in him. The Siren's song, you realize, is a personal appeal, tailored to the heart of the listener. They sing to Odysseus of what he craves most, knowledge. They sing of the great war at Troy, promising to recount every detail of the glory and the suffering. They sing of the secrets of the earth, of all that has been and all that will be. They offer him omniscience, a temptation far greater than gold or power. He thrashes against his bonds, his face a mask of desperate, agonized longing. His eyes plead, commanding you to release him, to turn the ship towards that beautiful, deadly shore. But you remember your oath. Two of the strongest among you, Perimedes and Eurylochus, rise from their benches, grab more rope, and add another layer of bindings, pulling them even tighter. You simply keep rowing, your muscles burning, your focus absolute. You pull with all your might, driving the ship through the placid water, leaving the island and its terrible, beautiful promise shrinking in your wake. Once you are safely past, the compulsion finally releases its grip. Odysseus slumps against the mast, his body drenched in sweat, his face pale and utterly exhausted, but sane. He gives a slow, deliberate nod. You move to him, your knives. The last hypnotic notes of the Sirens' song have dissolved into the sea breeze, but the quiet that follows is short-lived. A new sound begins to build ahead, a deep and guttural rumble that seems to emanate from the very bedrock of the world. It is a constant grinding roar, the sound of the ocean itself being torn apart. Your eyes follow the sound, and you see what looks like a permanent tempest locked in place. A column of smoke and spray rises into the air, and the sea below churns in a violent, chaotic dance. The sheer visceral power of it is unnerving. A collective fear ripples through the crew. Oars suddenly slick with sweat, slip from weary hands, and clatter against the ship's timbers. The ship, robbed of its momentum, begins to drift sideways, pulled by an unseen current towards the heart of the commotion. Odysseus moves through the stunned silence on deck. There is no panic in his stride, only a familiar, reassuring gravity. He places a hand on a man's shoulder here, speaks a quiet word there, his voice calm and steady amidst the rising fear. "My friends," he begins, his tone carrying over the din, "this is not our first trial. We have faced terrors that would break other men. We looked into the single eye of the Cyclops, and we escaped. We have endured. This is another challenge, and we will endure this too." He gestures with his chin towards the chaos. "Keep us clear of that smoke. Steer for the high cliffs on the other side. Row as you have never rowed before." His words are a balm, a reminder of your own resilience. The spell of fear is broken. You and your comrades retrieve your oars, the familiar weight in your hands a small comfort, and you pull the ship back under control, aiming for the towering rock face that marks the far side of the strait. He has not told you everything. He carries a heavier burden than any of you can know, a terrible secret given to him by the sorceress Circe. This narrow channel, which some say separates Sicily from the Italian mainland, is not guarded by a single danger, but by two. It is a place of impossible choices. On one side, the source of the deafening roar is Charybdis. She is less a creature and more a cataclysm, a monstrous whirlpool that inhales the sea 3 times a day, and 3 times a day vomits it back up in a boiling fury. To be caught in her maw is not to fight a monster, but to be consumed by the ocean itself. There is no escape from Charybdis. A ship caught in her vortex is simply gone, pulled down to the seafloor and splintered into nothing. On the other side, nestled in a dark cave high up the cliff face you are now steering towards, lives Scylla. The tales say she was once a beautiful nymph, transformed by a jealous goddess into a thing of nightmares. From her waist down she is a mass of snarling dogs, fused to the rock of her cave. From her torso sprout 6 impossibly long serpentine necks, each ending in a grotesque head. Each mouth is a cavern of triple rows of needle-sharp teeth. Her cry, a high-pitched yelp like that of a lost puppy, is a dreadful deception. For as a ship passes beneath her lair, those 6 heads will strike like vipers, plucking a sailor from the deck for each of her hungry mouths. Circe's counsel was as cold as it was clear. It is better to grieve for 6 men than for the entire crew. Odysseus has chosen to sacrifice a few to save the many, and he keeps this grim arithmetic to himself. To share it would be to paralyze you with a fear no leadership could overcome. You pull hard on the oars, your knuckles white, your muscles burning. The ship hugs the sheer weeping cliffs, the rock face so close you can see the salt stains and the hardy moss clinging to its crevices. As you draw level with the opposite side of the strait, you cannot help but stare in dreadful awe at Charybdis. The sea begins to drop, the water level falling as if a plug has been pulled from the floor of the world. A vast, spinning funnel forms its sides, a sheer wall of dark, swirling water. The roar intensifies into a deafening vortex of sound as the whirlpool sucks the waves down into its dark, bottomless throat. For a moment, you can see the black, muddy seabed itself, exposed and churning in the abyss. The sight is both hypnotic and utterly terrifying, a vision of nature's ultimate, indifferent power. It is a perfect and fatal distraction. While every eye is fixed on the spectacle of Charybdis, a series of high, thin yelps echoes from the cliffs above. Before you can even look up, 6 shadows fall across the deck. There is a sickening, wet, snatching sound, followed by the desperate, choked-off screams of your shipmates. 6 of your comrades, men you have shared wine and stories with, are gone from their benches. You look up in horror to see them dangling high in the air, their arms and legs kicking uselessly, silhouetted against the grey sky. They are being hoisted up the cliff face by the 6 slithering necks of Scylla, carried towards the dark mouth of her cave like a fisherman's catch. In their final moments, you hear them cry out Odysseus's name, a sound of pure terror and betrayal that will haunt your sleep for years to come. It is the most pitiful sound you have ever heard. There is nothing to be done. You are helpless, forced to watch as the monster drags your friends into her lair. The screaming stops. You row on, your movements mechanical, your heart a cold stone in your chest. The grief is immediate and overwhelming, a silent, choking sickness that settles over the entire ship. You have passed between the 2 terrors. You have survived the impossible strait, but the cost is etched into the empty spaces on the rowing benches, a fresh scar on the soul of your dwindling company. The proud fleet that sailed from the shores of Troy is being inexorably pared down, worn away by the gods and the monsters that serve them. The ship glides on, leaving the dreadful strait behind, sailing now towards an island that shimmers in the distance, a place sacred to the sun god. After the churning narrows and the monstrous forms of Scylla and Charybdis have faded into the misty distance, a new island emerges from the blue haze. This is Thrinacia, the isle of the sun god, Helios. It appears as a welcome dream, a gentle sanctuary of rolling hills and pastures of an almost impossibly vibrant green. As your ship glides closer, a peaceful sound drifts across the water, the soft lowing of cattle and the distant gentle bleating of sheep. This tranquil scene, however, stirs a deep unease within you, for this is the very place you were warned against. Both the blind prophet Tiresias in the underworld and the sorceress Circe on her island spoke of this place with solemn gravity. The herds that graze here are sacred, consecrated to the god who pulls the sun across the sky. They are not to be touched. Odysseus, his mind still sharp, despite his weariness, remembers every word of the prophecy. He intends to follow the warnings to the letter, urging you all to find the strength to row past without stopping. He reminds you of the dire cost of disobedience, the utter destruction of your ship, and every soul aboard. But as you look at the faces of your comrades, you see men who have reached their limit. Their shoulders are slumped, their hands raw from the oars, their eyes hollowed out by sleepless nights and unending fear. It is Eurylochus who finally gives voice to the crew's collective exhaustion. He speaks not of rebellion, but of simple human need. He paints a picture of one night, just one, on solid, unmoving earth, with a warm fire and a properly cooked meal. He gives his word and encourages you to do the same, that the sacred herds will be left in peace. The pull of the land is too strong, the desire for a brief respite from the relentless sea, a force akin to a quiet mutiny. Odysseus, ever the pragmatist, sees that to push you further would be to break you entirely. He relents, but on one condition: he makes every single one of you, his weary and battered crew, swear a great and binding oath. You stand on the deck and vow, with the gods as your witness, that you will be content with the remaining food and wine given to you by Circe. You swear that under no circumstances will you lay a hand on the immortal herds of Helios. With the oath sworn, you guide your ship into a sheltered sandy cove. The gentle scrape of the keel on the shore is the most welcome sound you have heard in an age. That evening you gather around a crackling fire, sharing out the last of your provisions and mourning the friends you lost to the terrors of the straits. But as you sleep, a change comes. A hostile god, it seems, sends a furious south wind, a gale that shrieks through the cove and whips the sea into a white fury. For one day, then two, then a week, the wind howls without ceasing. A full month passes, and you remain prisoners on the island, the constant wind making any departure impossible. Your supplies from Circe are long gone. The last of the wine has been drunk, the final crumb of bread eaten. You are reduced to scouring the island for wild birds and casting lines into the turbulent sea, but your catch is meagre, barely enough to keep you alive. A deep, gnawing hunger sets in, weakening your bodies and clouding your minds. And all the while, just beyond your camp, the fat, sleek cattle of the sun graze peacefully, their presence a constant, silent, and unbearable temptation. One day, seeking a moment of solitude and desperate for divine intervention, Odysseus walks inland to a quiet grove to pray. He asks the gods for a sign, for any path that might lead you away from this slow starvation. As he prays, a profound and unnatural sleep is cast over him, a divine veil that removes him from the unfolding crisis. Back at the beached ship, with your leader absent, the last of your resolve finally crumbles. Eurylochus, his own face gaunt with hunger, stands before you and makes a desperate, persuasive appeal. He argues that of all the ways a man can die, wasting away from starvation is the most wretched and ignoble. It is better, he reasons, to act and face a swift end than to passively wither into nothing. His fatal logic proposes a compromise: kill the finest of the cattle, make a grand sacrifice to the gods to appease them, and then eat the rest. If Helios is angered and demands your lives, then let it be a quick death in the wine-dark sea, a fate far more honourable than this slow, grinding demise. His words, born of desperation, find fertile ground in your own aching hunger. The solemn oath you swore feels like a distant memory, a promise made by different men in a different world. Driven by the primal need to survive, you help round up the best of the sun god's herd. You do your best to perform the proper rites, but your poverty is clear. With no sacred barley, you use fresh oak leaves. With no wine for libations, you use clear water from a stream. You build up the fires, and soon the forbidden meat is roasting on spits, its rich aroma filling the air. It is this scent that greets Odysseus as he awakens and makes his way back to you. He knows, even before he sees the feast, what you have done. A cry of pure despair escapes him as he understands the doom you have sealed, lamenting that the gods put him to sleep at the one moment his vigilance was needed most. For 6 days you feast, trying to ignore the creeping dread that accompanies each mouthful, but the gods make their displeasure known in unsettling supernatural ways. The flayed hides of the cattle you slaughtered begin to crawl and slither along the ground as if alive. The meat on the spits, both raw and cooked, begins to low and moo, a ghostly echo of the living beasts. These are omens of the highest order, terrifying signs of divine wrath. Yet your hunger is so profound that you cannot bring yourselves to stop eating. On the 7th day, the wind finally drops. The storm abates as suddenly as it began, leaving behind a calm sea and a clear sky. With a renewed sense of urgency, you launch your ship and sail away, desperate to put the cursed island behind you. You have escaped Thrinacia, but you have not escaped the consequences. Far away, on Mount Olympus, Helios has gone to Zeus, the king of the gods, demanding vengeance. He threatens to take his son down into the underworld, to shine only among the dead if justice is not done. Zeus, protector of the cosmic order, has no choice but to agree. Once your ship is a mere speck on the ocean, with no land in sight, the sky currents, those merciless architects of your fate, have turned against you once more. The same cruel pull that dragged your ship to its doom now seizes the splintered timbers of your raft, drawing you back towards the monstrous strait. Ahead, Charybdis begins her dreadful inhalation. The sea groans, a vast, hollow sound, as the water spirals downwards into a churning, fathomless maw. There is no escape. Your only hope is a wild fig tree, its ancient roots clawing into the cliff face, its branches overhanging the abyss. With the last of your strength, you leap from the disintegrating raft, your fingers closing around the gnarled wood, just as the whirlpool swallows the last remnants of your vessel. You hang there, suspended between the rock and the void, the strain in your arms, a deep, burning fire. Below, the sea roars its fury. Hours pass in this state of almost impossible endurance. You are a solitary witness to the monster's terrible rhythm, a man clinging to life by a thread. Then, as slowly as it began, the cycle reverses. The whirlpool vomits forth what it has consumed. Amidst the churning brine, you see the simple keel and mast of your raft spat back into the world of light. You release your grip, dropping with a calculated fall back onto the wood, and with your bare hands, you begin to paddle. You paddle away from the twin horrors, escaping for a second time, but this time utterly and profoundly alone. For 9 days you drift upon the endless wine-dark sea. The sun burns your skin, the salt crusts your lips. Your world shrinks to the gentle rock of the waves and the vast, indifferent sky. You are a speck of life in a world of water, your past a collection of ghosts, your future a terrifying void. On the 10th day, a gentle current, guided by a divine hand, carries you towards a distant shadow on the horizon. Land. The waves push you ashore, tumbling you onto soft white sand. You are found by the mistress of this island, the nymph Calypso. Her name means she who conceals, and she is a figure of daunting beauty, a goddess with braided hair and a voice that holds the cadence of human warmth. She finds you, a king stripped of everything but his life, and carries you from the edge of the sea into her care. Her island, Aegean, is a world away from the deceptions of Circe or the savagery of the Cyclops. It is a sanctuary, a pocket of unspoiled paradise. Her home is a deep, vaulted cavern, where a fire of fragrant cedar and juniper wood burns with a steady, smokeless flame, scenting the air with their sweet, resinous perfume. Outside, a lush wood of alder and poplar is alive with the chatter of birds. A young, vigorous vine, heavy with clusters of purple grapes, winds its way around the entrance to the grotto. 4 springs of clear, cool water flow from a single source, their streams meandering through soft meadows brimming with wild violets and fresh green parsley. It is a place of perfect, gentle order, a haven insulated from the cruelties of the world. Here, you are no longer a captain or a king, but a survivor, the last man standing from a glorious army. And in this place, you are offered a respite that feels like a dream. Calypso, the luminous goddess, finds herself captivated by your mortal spirit, by the stories etched into the lines of your face and the sorrow that lingers in your eyes. She falls in love with you, and she offers you the ultimate gift, immortality. Stay with her, she promises, and you will never age, never fall ill, never taste the bitterness of death. You can live forever in this idyllic realm, with her divine beauty and unwavering companionship to light your days. For a time, the offer is a balm to your wounded soul. You are weary beyond the telling of it, your spirit fractured by a decade of loss. The thought of an end to the struggle of a life without peril or grief is a powerful seduction. You share her food, her nectar and ambrosia, and you lie with her in her soft bed each night. The days bleed into one another in a seamless flow of pleasant, timeless moments. There are no storms to navigate, no enemies to outwit. There is only the gentle rhythm of the island, the mesmerizing sound of Calypso singing as she works her golden loom, and the vast, silent expanse of the sea stretching to every horizon. It is peace. It is safety. It is everything you thought you wanted. But you come to understand that a paradise without choice is a gilded cage. The absence of struggle you discover is also the absence of meaning. A life without end is a story without a plot. The longing for home, for your own mortal life, does not fade with the passing seasons. It deepens, becoming a persistent, hollow ache in your chest. You see the face of your wife Penelope in your mind's eye, her image a beacon of loyalty. You yearn for your son Telemachus, the infant you left behind, who must now be a man. You even miss the sharp, familiar scent of wood smoke over your own rugged island, the stony soil and stubborn olive trees of Ithaca. Immortality, you realize, is a hollow prize when severed from the people and the place that gave your life its shape. And so, a new routine forms. Every day you walk to the westernmost point of the island, to the rocks that meet the ceaseless wash of the waves. There you sit, your elbows on your knees, and you stare out at the barren sea, the tears streaming down your face. Your eyes, which have looked upon Troy in flames and the wonders of the underworld, are now never dry. You are an honored guest in a goddess's home, yet you feel like a prisoner. Calypso sees your inconsolable grief. It pains her, for her love is genuine, but her possessiveness is that of a god. She cannot comprehend your choice. She comes to you, her voice a gentle chide, reminding you of the storms and sorrows that await you in the world of men, comparing her own eternal radiance to the fleeting beauty of your mortal wife, but your heart remains steadfast. 7 years pass, 7 years spent in a state of beautiful, sorrowful stillness. You are not trapped by a monster's curse or an enchanter's spell, but by the tender, unyielding love of a goddess and the allure of a perfect, unchanging life. Your great journey has stalled. The sacker of cities, the man of many wiles, is reduced to a lonely figure on a shore. Your only action is the act of remembering. Your only quest is the desperate, silent prayer for return. You are suspended in time, a hero in waiting, caught between a divine lover and a mortal wife, between an eternal paradise and a flawed, beloved home. Your story is becalmed, waiting for a fresh wind from the gods to finally fill your sails. While you remain marooned on the dreamlike island of Aegean, a world away from the affairs of mortals, the gods on high Olympus have not forgotten you. Your greatest advocate, the grey-eyed goddess Athena, chooses her moment with care. She approaches the throne of her father, Zeus, and speaks for you. Her voice carries the weight of reason as she paints a picture of your long suffering, reminding him of your unwavering piety and the profound injustice of your 7-year exile. It is time, she argues, for your ordeal to find its end. Zeus, who holds the balance of all things, concurs. The timing is perfect. Your great nemesis, Poseidon, the Earthshaker, is temporarily absent, journeying to the farthest edge of the world to accept a tribute from the distant Ethiopians. In his absence, a window of opportunity opens. Zeus turns to his son, the messenger god Hermes, whose winged sandals can cross the world in a breath. He gives a clear command: fly to Aegean, find the nymph Calypso, and instruct her that the long-suffering Odysseus must be released. Hermes descends from the heavens like a shooting star, gliding over the wine-dark sea until he reaches your island prison. He finds Calypso in her great vaulted grotto, a place woven from living nature. A fire of fragrant cedar and juniper wood burns on the hearth as she weaves at her loom with a golden shuttle, her beautiful voice echoing from the cave walls. Hermes delivers the edict from the king of the gods. Calypso's song stops. Her shuttle falls silent, her face a study in divine beauty, clouds with outrage and a deep, inconsolable sorrow. She unleashes a torrent of impassioned words, accusing the male gods of a bitter double standard. They are free, she argues, to take mortal women as lovers, but should a goddess dare to love a mortal man, the council on Olympus is swift to intervene. She recounts how she found you, a broken man clinging to wreckage, and saved you from the sea's cold embrace. She reminds Hermes of how she has nourished you, even offering you the ultimate gift of immortality. But even as she speaks, she knows the futility of her protest. No one, not even a goddess, can defy a direct command from Zeus. With a heart heavy with resignation, she leaves her grotto and walks to the shore to find you. You are sitting where she always finds you, on the smooth, wave-worn rocks, your gaze fixed on the endless, empty horizon. The salt from the sea spray mingles with the salt of your own tears as you mourn for your lost home. She approaches you gently and tells you the news. You are free. She promises she will not abandon you to the waves, but will help you. She will provide the tools to build a seaworthy raft and provision it with fresh water, dark wine, and sacks of grain. When the time comes, she will even summon a fair wind to guide you on your way. After 7 years of gentle captivity, you are immediately suspicious. You see another divine trick. a new ordeal designed to break you completely. You look into her sorrowful eyes and demand she swear a great and binding oath upon the waters of the river Styx, the most sacred and unbreakable vow a god can make, that she is not plotting some fresh misfortune. Without hesitation, she swears the oath, and with her words, your doubts dissolve. A profound sense of relief washes over you. Your long, weary vigil is finally at an end. For the next 4 days, a forgotten energy surges through your veins. The man of action, the master craftsman, is reawakened. Calypso provides you with a great bronze axe and a polished adze. She leads you to a grove where tall seasoned trees, alder, poplar, and sky-piercing fir, stand dry and perfect for shipbuilding. You set to work, the rhythmic thud of your axe echoing across the silent island. You fell 20 trees, trimming their branches and skillfully shaping the logs. You bore holes and joined them together with pegs, crafting a broad, sturdy hull. You raise a deck, step a single mast with a yardarm, and fashion a wide steering oar to act as a rudder. On the 5th day, your vessel is complete. Calypso watches, her expression a mixture of pride and sadness. She brings you fine cloth for a sail and helps you launch the raft into the calm water of her cove. She gives you a change of warm clothing and places the provisions aboard. Then, as promised, she calls up a warm, gentle breeze from the west, a wind that will carry you directly towards home. You say your farewells, a quiet, bittersweet parting between a mortal hero and the goddess who held him captive with her love. As you push off from the shore and hoist your sail, you are once again a sailor, a man defined not by his past, but by his future purpose. For 17 days you sail eastward. The journey is blessedly smooth. By night you navigate by the stars, just as Calypso instructed, keeping your eyes on the Pleiades, the late-setting Botus, and the Great Bear, holding it always on your left hand. On the morning of the 18th day, your heart leaps. There on the horizon, you see a faint dark line, like a shield lying on the misty sea. It is land, the shadowy mountains of Syria, the island of the Phaeacians. It is the first glimpse of a human civilization you have had in a decade. But your hope is tragically premature. Poseidon, returning from his travels, spots your small raft from the distant mountains. His fury is immense. He sees the hand of the other gods in your escape and feels utterly betrayed. Roaring with rage, he gathers the clouds and stirs the sea into a terrifying frenzy. He summons all the great winds and unleashes them upon you. The sky and sea become one churning mass of grey. A colossal wave, a moving mountain of dark water, lifts your raft and smashes down upon it, washing you deep into the boiling ocean. Weighed down by the fine clothes Calypso gave you, you fight your way back to the surface and scramble back aboard the battered deck, just as the mast snaps and the sail is torn away. As you cling desperately to the splintered timbers, a sea nymph named Ino takes pity on you. She rises from the waves in the form of a graceful seabird and lands on the wreckage. She tells you to abandon the raft, for it cannot save you. She offers you her own divine veil, a soft, shimmering scarf. Tie it around your waist, she instructs, and it will protect you, keeping you afloat. You hesitate, still wary of divine gifts, but another thunderous wave crashes down, shattering your raft into 1,000 pieces. You are left with no choice. You wrap the sacred veil around your waist and commit yourself to the waves. For 2 days and 2 nights, you are tossed in the churning sea, a tiny speck in the face of the storm's immense power. You swim onward, driven by sheer will and the faint magic of the veil. Finally, on the 3rd day, the winds die down and the sea grows calm. You find yourself close to the coast of Sharia, but it is a treacherous shore of sharp rocks and while you sleep the profound, bottomless sleep of the utterly exhausted, a subtle current of divine will begins to stir the world around you. Far from your makeshift bed of leaves, in the heart of the Phaeacian palace, the goddess Athena is at work. She weaves herself into the dreams of Nausicaa, the bright, unmarried daughter of King Alcinous. In this vision, Athena takes the form of one of Nausicaa's dearest friends and speaks with a voice of gentle concern. She chides the princess for the state of the palace linens, remarking how they lie folded and unwashed, a small neglect that might reflect poorly on a maiden of marriageable age. The dream friend hints that a pristine trousseau and a reputation for diligence are what attract the noblest suitors. It is a quiet, masterful piece of divine manipulation, planting a simple, practical idea that will set the day's crucial events in motion. The next morning, Nausicaa awakens with the dream fresh in her mind. She seeks out her father with a dutiful confidence and asks for the use of a wagon and a pair of strong mules, explaining her sudden ambition to wash the family's accumulated laundry. Alcinous, seeing only his dutiful daughter, readily agrees. Soon, the high-sided wagon is piled high with fine tunics, heavy woolen cloaks and bed coverings. With her cheerful handmaidens in tow, Nausicaa takes the reins and guides the mules out of the city, following a familiar track down towards the wide, clear-running river that meets the sea. There, at the freshwater pools formed by the river mouth, they unload their cargo. For hours they work in the ancient way, treading the heavy fabrics in the cool water and beating them against the smooth, sun-warmed stones of the riverbank. It is a scene of perfect, civilized peace, the rhythmic sounds of their work punctuated by laughter. Once the washing is done, they spread the clothes and linens across the wide expanse of coastal pebbles, a colourful patchwork drying quickly under the Aegean sun. With their duties complete and time to spare, they begin to play. They produce a light, brightly painted ball, and their game is one of carefree joy, their happy cries echoing in the still afternoon air. It is this sound, the sound of a world entirely separate from your own suffering, that finally pierces the veil of your exhaustion. You stir within your protective thicket of olive branches. The salt from the sea has dried on your skin, forming a tight, abrasive crust. Your hair is matted with sand and brine, and your body is a map of bruises from the ocean's relentless assault. Peeking through the dense leaves, you see them, a group of young women, radiant and carefree. You are a castaway, a creature of the wild sea, and they are the very picture of cultivated society. You know you must seek their help, but your appearance is ruinous, more likely to inspire terror than pity. With a surge of resolve, you break off a thick, leafy olive branch, holding it before you as a fragile shield for your modesty, and step out into the open. The effect is immediate. The handmaidens, seeing your wild, dishevelled form emerge from the trees, let out shrieks of alarm and scatter in every direction. But Nausicaa does not run. Perhaps it is her royal bearing, or perhaps it is the subtle courage gifted to her by the watchful Athena, but she stands her ground. She observes you not with fear, but with a calm, discerning curiosity. This presents you with a delicate and critical choice. The tradition for a desperate suppliant is to rush forward, fall to your knees, and clasp the knees of the person from whom you seek aid. Yet, in your current state, such a sudden, desperate movement might terrify this brave young woman. The alternative is to remain at a respectful distance, to trust in the power of words alone. You choose the wiser, more careful path. Standing at a distance, you begin to speak. Despite your wretched condition, your voice is steady, and your words are the carefully chosen phrases of a nobleman. You do not begin with your own needs, but with praise for her, comparing her poise and beauty to that of a goddess, perhaps even Artemis, the divine archer. You artfully gauge her reaction before gently turning to your own story, explaining that you are a shipwrecked sailor, cast ashore after 20 days of struggle against the sea. You appeal not to her charity, but to her compassion and her sense of civilized decency, humbly asking for a spare garment to cover yourself and for directions to the nearby city. Your speech is a testament to the fact that nobility is not a matter of appearance, but of spirit. Nausicaa is moved, not only by your plight, but by the intelligence and dignity of your address. She answers with a kindness that belies her years, reassuring you that you have not washed ashore on some savage coast, but have come to Aeaea, the land of the Phaeacians, a people known for their civility. She promises that you will not lack for clothing, food, or guidance. Turning to her attendants, who are now cautiously peeking out from their hiding places, she calls them back. she scolds them gently, reminding them of the sacred duty of hospitality. All strangers and beggars, she explains, are under the protection of Zeus himself, and any gift given to them, no matter how small, is a precious act of piety. With her authority re-established, she instructs her maids to provide you with food and drink, and to attend to you while you bathe in the river. The handmaidens, their fear replaced by a sense of duty, led you to a sheltered spot by the river. They lay out a fresh tunic and a warm cloak and give you a small, elegant flask of golden olive oil to soothe your salt-chafed skin. You wade into the cool, fresh water, washing away the grime of the sea and the residue of your long ordeal. When you emerge and dress in the clean, soft garments, Athena bestows upon you a final, subtle gift. She sheds a divine grace over you, making you seem taller, broader, and altogether more handsome, restoring the noble presence that your hardship had concealed. When Nausicaa sees you again, clean and clothed, she is visibly struck by your transformation. She turns to her maids and whispers that this is the very sort of man she would hope to have as a husband. With the laundry now dry and packed away, Nausicaa gives you careful instructions for the journey to the city. She is wise to the ways of her people and wary of provoking gossip. To be seen arriving in town with a strange, handsome man would surely set tongues wagging. She tells you to follow her wagon at a distance. Just outside the city walls, you will find a beautiful poplar grove sacred to Athena. She asks you to wait there while she and her maids drive on ahead, allowing enough time to pass. So the Phaeacian mariners are as good as their word. After the telling of your tale, a decade of loss and survival recounted in the firelight of King Alcinous's hall, they are moved to a deep and generous pity. They bestow upon you gifts of such magnificence, they outshine all the spoils you ever won on the plains of Troy: heavy bronze tripods, ornate cauldrons, and chests of finely woven robes. You are led to one of their remarkable black ships, vessels that move with a thought, needing neither rudder nor sail. On a soft bed of linens, you are overcome by a profound and dreamless sleep, a divine gift of stillness after so many years of turmoil. You do not feel the whisper-quiet journey across the sea, nor the gentle hands that lift you and carry you to the shore. When you finally awaken, it is to the soft sound of waves lapping on a sandy cove. The Phaeacian ship is gone, vanished as if it were part of the slumber from which you have just emerged. The air smells of salt and wild olive. You are home. Though you do not yet know it, you are lying on the soil of Ithaca. Your first waking moments are ones of deep confusion. A thick, wet mist, a deliberate enchantment by your patron goddess, Athena clings to everything, shrouding the familiar landscape in a blanket of grey anonymity. The shoreline, the ancient olive trees, the rising hills, all are strangers to you. A cold fear grips you, the familiar dread of a castaway. You believe the Phaeacians have betrayed you, abandoning you on yet another unknown coast. It is only when a figure resolves out of the mist, a graceful young shepherd, who is in truth Athena in disguise, that your despair begins to lift. She questions you, and you, ever cautious, spin a clever tale of being a fugitive from Crete. A smile plays on her lips, and in a shimmer of light, she reveals her true, awe-inspiring form. The goddess of wisdom stands before you, and the mist in your mind begins to clear. She confirms that this is indeed your homeland. Together you carry the Phaeacian treasures into the cool, dark mouth of a sacred cave, the grotto of the nymphs, hiding them safely away until the time for riches has returned. With the treasure secured, Athena sits with you beneath a gnarled olive tree and explains the bitter reality of the home you have returned to. For years, your palace has been under a slow and steady siege. Over 100 suitors, the arrogant and entitled sons of the region's nobility, have infested your halls. Convinced of your death, they have laid claim to your estate, consuming your wealth with a gluttonous disregard. Day after day, they slaughter your finest cattle and goats for their feasts, and night after night, they drain your cellars of their dark, sweet wine. They lounge in your halls, harassing your servants, and most insolently, demanding that your steadfast wife Penelope choose one of them to be her new husband, the new king of Ithaca. They are a plague upon your house, and worse, they have marked your son for death. Telemachus, once a babe in arms, is now a young man, and they see him as the final obstacle to their ambitions. A simple triumphant return is therefore impossible. To walk through your own gates as Odysseus, the hero of Troy, would be to walk into an ambush. The suitors, in their sheer numbers, would cut you down before you could even reach the threshold of your own great hall. Patience, she counsels, must be your watchword, and cunning your sharpest weapon. And so, with a touch of her divine hand, Athena begins your transformation. It is a strange and unsettling magic. You feel your skin tighten and wrinkle like old parchment. Your limbs grow stiff and gnarled. Your bright, keen eyes are dimmed, clouded over with the weariness of a long, hard life. Your golden hair thins and turns to a wispy grey. She clothes you in a wretched tunic, filthy and torn, and places a worn leather pouch and a crooked beggar's staff in your hand. The mighty king, the sacker of cities, is gone. In his place stands a hunched and miserable old vagrant, a man no one would look at twice. In this perfect disguise you can move unseen, a shadow in your own home, to observe, to listen, and to test the hearts of those you left behind. She directs you not to the palace, but to the humbler dwelling of your most trusted servant, the swineherd Eumaeus. You follow a winding path up into the hills, to a clearing where his well-built stone lodge stands, surrounded by pens for the pigs he so carefully tends. Eumaeus does not recognize the broken old man who appears at his gate, but his character, noble and true, shines through. He greets the stranger with kindness, chastising his dogs and inviting you in for warmth and food, upholding the sacred laws of hospitality even in his modest home. You spend the evening by his fire, listening as he speaks with profound sadness of the master he believes is long dead. You, in turn, tell him carefully constructed stories, weaving tales of your own supposed travels and dropping hints that Odysseus might one day return. Through it all, Eumaeus's loyalty never wavers. His decency is a small, steady light in the darkness that has fallen over your kingdom. While you are safely sheltered in the swineherd's hut, Athena is at work, guiding your son's ship back to a quiet harbour on Ithaca. Telemachus has been on a journey of his own, seeking news of you in Pylos and Sparta, and has now returned, having narrowly avoided an ambush set by the suitors. The goddess directs him to the very same place, to the home of Eumaeus, and there, in the quiet of the rustic lodge, the moment of reunion arrives. For a fleeting instant, Athena lifts your disguise, the rags fall away, and you stand before your son in your true form, tall and powerful. Telemachus, who has known you only through stories, is stunned, believing at first that you must be a god, but you speak his name, and the 20 years of separation collapse in a single emotional embrace. Tears of sorrow and of overwhelming joy are shed in the firelight of that humble hut. You quickly reveal your plan, and Telemachus, his heart filled with a fierce new purpose, pledges his unwavering support. With the plan set, you once more assume the form of the beggar. Guided by the loyal Eumaeus, you begin the final walk, down from the hills and towards the gates of your own town. As you approach the palace courtyard, you see a pathetic sight. Lying on a neglected dung heap, swarming with flies, is an ancient dog. His coat is matted, his body frail and weak. This is Argos, the hunting hound you trained yourself from a puppy. All those years ago, you left for Troy when he was in his prime, a creature of lightning speed and boundless energy. Now 2 decades later, he is at the very end of his life, forgotten by the servants who are too busy serving their new masters. Yet, as you pass by, the old dog's senses, though faded, detect the one scent they have never forgotten. You step across the familiar stone threshold of your own home, yet you are a stranger here. The great hall, your megaron, once a place of order, now rings with the discordant sound of riotous feasting. The air, thick with the smoke of roasting meat and the cloying scent of spilled wine, hangs heavy with disrespect. This is the scene that greets you. 100 or more young noblemen, the finest of Ithaca and the surrounding islands, behaving like wolves in your sheepfold. They have consumed your wealth, harassed your servants, and now demand the hand of your wife, all under the guise of courtship. At their head are the two most prominent, Antinous and Eurymachus. Antinous is all brute arrogance. Eurymachus is the more subtle poison, his words smooth and his smile a mask for deceit. They and their cohort see only a vagrant, a broken old man in filthy rags, and they treat you with casual cruelty. Their mockery is a dull drone as they deny you scraps from your own table, a table groaning under the weight of your livestock and vintages, the ultimate violation of the sacred laws of hospitality, the xenia that binds host and guest, occurs without a flicker of shame. When Antinous, in a fit of pique, hurls a heavy wooden footstool at you, it strikes you squarely between the shoulder blades. The impact is a solid, jarring thud, a shock of pain you absorb into the vast ocean of suffering you have endured. You barely flinch. This is not weakness. It is a display of almost inhuman self-mastery. Beneath the grime and the stooped shoulders, your mind is a razor, observing, calculating, taking the measure of every man in the room. Each insult is a piece of intelligence, each act of gluttony, a confirmation of the rot that has festered in your absence. You are not entirely alone in this sea of hostility. Across the smoky hall, you see your son, Telemachus. He is a man now, his jaw set, his eyes holding yours for a fleeting, significant moment. He is your ally, privy to your true identity, and he watches the proceedings with a coiled stillness, awaiting your signal. There are others too. The older servants, those who remember the old king, move through the chaos with downcast eyes. A quiet word of sympathy here, a small offering of bread slipped to you when the masters are not looking. These are small sparks of loyalty in the encroaching darkness. It is through these whispers, that word of the resilient beggar, the one who endured Antinous' wrath, reaches the ears of your wife. Intrigued, and ever hopeful for news, Penelope summons you to her private chambers for an audience that evening. The great hall's cacophony fades, replaced by the quiet intimacy of the queen's quarters. You sit before her, near the dancing flames of the central hearth, the firelight catching the silver threads in her dark hair and illuminating the profound sorrow etched upon her face. She is a queen, regal and composed, yet her grief is a tangible presence. And you are a beggar, a nameless wanderer. She looks at you, her gaze searching, and though she does not see her husband's face, she seems to sense a familiar gravity in the stranger before her. She speaks of Odysseus, her long-lost husband, and the tears she has held back for so long begin to trace paths down her cheeks. She is testing you, as is her cautious nature, asking you of your lineage and your travels. You weave for her a masterful story, a tapestry of half-truths and plausible fictions. You cast yourself as a nobleman from Crete, a man who once had the honor of hosting Odysseus on his journey to Troy. You describe the fine purple cloak he wore, fastened with a golden brooch fashioned like a hunting dog, holding a fawn. You speak of his herald, Eurybates, a man she also knew. The details are so specific, so painfully accurate, that her last defenses crumble. This stranger must have known him. The story is a balm and a fresh wound all at once, and she weeps without restraint for the man she believes is gone forever. Recovering her composure, she shares the burden of her own trial. She tells you of her most celebrated stratagem, a monument to her cunning and devotion. To keep the suitors at bay, she had announced she must first weave a burial shroud for your father, the aging hero Laertes. It was a sacred duty no one could deny her. She promised that when the great tapestry was complete, she would finally choose a husband from among them. So for 3 long years she worked at the loom in the daylight hours, her shuttle flying back and forth. But every night, in the solitary glow of torchlight, she would secretly unpick and unravel the very threads she had so painstakingly woven that day. It was a desperate, brilliant act of delay, a way of holding back time itself. Her deception, however, could not last. A disloyal maid betrayed the secret to the suitors. Now her time has run out. The pressure is immense, their patience exhausted. She tells you, a note of finality in her voice, that she has conceived of one last challenge to end the stalemate. The very next day she will stage a contest. She will retrieve your great bow from the storeroom, a magnificent weapon of horn and sinew, so powerful that no man but you has ever been able to string it. The challenge will be twofold. First, a suitor must string the bow, and then he must shoot an arrow clean through the sockets of 12 axe heads, set in a perfect line. It is a feat of legendary strength and skill, one she has witnessed you perform in times of peace. In her mind, it is an impossible test, designed to publicly shame them all. She has no idea that the one man on earth capable of this feat is sitting before her, his true strength hidden beneath a beggar's rags. As your audience concludes, Penelope, ever the gracious host, insists that you be treated with respect. She instructs your old nurse, Euryclea, to bring a basin of water and wash your weary feet. The old woman, her movements slowed by age but still full of a gentle competence, kneels before you. As her warm, wrinkled hands move up from your ankles, her fingers brush against a familiar crescent-shaped scar on your thigh. It is a pale, raised line, a story written on your skin since boyhood, the mark left by a wild boar's tusk during a hunt on Mount Parnassus. Her breath catches in her throat. Recognition dawns, a flood of disbelief, followed by overwhelming joy. Her eyes, wide with shock, fly to your face, and her mouth opens to cry out your name. You move with the speed of a serpent, your hand clamping over her mouth, while your other arm pulls her close. The pieces are all in place. You whisper fiercely in her ear, a command to remain silent, for one word would unravel your entire plan and seal all their fates. Tears stream down her face as she understands, nodding her assent. Your secret is safe once more, now shared between your son, your loyal swineherd, and the faithful nurse who cradled you as a baby. The following morning, a hush falls over the great hall as Penelope descends from her chambers. She moves with a quiet dignity that stills the usual clamour, her face a mask of solemn resolve. In her hands, she carries the instrument of your legend, the great bow. It is a thing of formidable beauty, crafted from the horn of a wild ibex, its polished surfaces gleaming in the light from the high windows. Behind her, a handmaiden carries the quiver, heavy with bronze-tipped arrows. You watch from your lowly stool as she addresses the hall, her voice clear and steady. She announces the terms of the contest. The man who can string your bow and send an arrow clean through the sockets of 12 axes will win her hand. A murmur of avarice and arrogance sweeps through the assembled suitors. Each man, puffed with pride, sees himself as the victor, the future king of Ithaca. Your son Telemachus steps forward to orchestrate the trial. He retrieves the 12 ceremonial axes and plants them one by one into the earthen floor of the Megaron, his movements precise, creating a perfect narrow channel of aligned rings. With the stage set, he makes a show of attempting the feat himself. He takes up the bow, his young hands gripping the familiar wood. 3 times he strains, his muscles bunching, his face flushed with effort. On the 4th attempt, you see the wood begin to yield, the string nearing the notch. He almost has it, but this is not his moment. You give him the slightest, almost imperceptible, shake of your head. He understands at once, and with a sigh of feigned disappointment he steps back, declaring the task beyond his youthful strength. It is a masterful piece of theatre, setting the stage for the suitor's own failure. One by one they take their turn. Leodes, the soothsayer, is first, his slender hands ill-suited to the task. He barely moves the unyielding limbs of the bow before giving up in disgust. The others follow, each swaggering forward, only to be humbled. The bow, which has lain dormant for 2 decades, is brutally stiff. It resists their every effort, a loyal extension of your own will. They cannot even begin to bend it far enough to slip the string into its nock. In their frustration, they call for tallow and a fire, hoping to warm and grease the horn and sinew to make it more pliable. But the weapon refuses to be tamed by lesser men. Their initial confidence curdles into a sour mix of humiliation and anger. The strongest among them, Eurymachus strains until his face is purple, yet the bow remains a monument to its absent master. While their struggle provides the perfect distraction, you slip from the hall into the quiet of the sunlit courtyard. There, you find your two most trusted servants, Eumaeus, the swineherd, and Phoelucius, the cowherd. The time for disguise is momentarily over. You tell them who you are, but words are not enough after 20 years. You pull aside the rags covering your leg and show them the old familiar scar, a pale crescent left by a boar's tusk long ago in your youth. Their recognition is instant and overwhelming. Tears of joy stream down their weathered faces as they embrace you. You quiet them gently and give them their instructions. Eumaeus is to bring you the bow when the moment is right, ignoring any protests. Phoelucius must bar the great doors to the outer courtyard, sealing the trap. You tell them to instruct the serving women to lock the doors to their own quarters and remain inside, no matter what sounds of strife they might hear from the hall. Your return to the Megaron is unnoticed. All the suitors have now tried and failed, their pride lying shattered on the floor beside the unconquered bow. Antinous, the most arrogant and cruel of them all, attempts to salvage the situation. He suggests they postpone the contest until the next day. They can make sacrifices to Apollo, the archer god, he argues, and try again with divine favor. It is a transparent excuse, a desperate play to avoid the finality of their collective failure. It is at this moment that you speak. Your voice is that of the old beggar, raspy and humble, yet it cuts through the tension in the hall. You ask with performative deference if you might be allowed to handle the weapon. Not to compete for the queen's hand, you assure them, but simply to test whether your old arms retain any of the strength they once possessed. The suggestion is met with a wave of furious, scornful laughter. The suitors are incensed, but beneath their mockery lies a deep-seated fear, the profound shame they would suffer if this decrepit wanderer succeeded where they had so spectacularly failed. Antinous threatens you with violence, but Penelope, from her seat of honor, intervenes. She rebukes him for his lack of grace and insists the stranger be given his chance. If he succeeds, she promises he will be rewarded with fine clothes and a new spear, taking command with a newfound authority. Telemachus then sends his mother to her chambers, telling her firmly that the bow and the affairs of men are for him to manage now. Eumaeus, his heart pounding with loyalty, endures the suitor's threats and carries the great bow towards you. As he does, Phoelucius slips out, his footsteps silent, and secures the heavy gates. You take the weapon into your hands. A deep silence descends upon the hall. The suitors watch, their jeers dying in their throats. You handle the bow not as a stranger, but as a long-lost friend. Your fingers trace its curves, testing the tension of the sinew, checking the smoothness of the horn, much as a master musician might examine his lyre after a long journey. Then, with an ease that seems to defy nature, you draw the string back. There is no grunt of exertion, no straining of muscle. As effortlessly as a bard fits a new string to his instrument, you bend the mighty bow and slip the cord into its notch. You pluck it once with your thumb. It sings a sharp, resonant note, like the cry of a swallow, a sound that echoes through the silent hall. The suitors' faces drain of color, and at that very moment, from a clear sky, Zeus answers with a single sharp crack of thunder, a definitive omen of divine approval. Still seated on your stool, you lift an arrow from the quiver. You nock it, draw the string back to your ear, and aim. The release is fluid, silent. The arrow becomes a bronze-tipped blur, flying straight and true down the line of axes. It passes cleanly through the ring of each and every one, a perfect, impossible shot. The hall holds its breath. You have done what no other man could. You turn your gaze to your son, who now stands beside you, his own sword and spear in hand. The stranger has not disgraced you, you say. The confrontation in the great hall is a storm of righteous fury, swift and final. Guided by the subtle hand of Athena, you stand with your son and two loyal herdsmen against the men who have feasted on your fortune. In the echoing silence that follows, You are once more the undisputed master of your own home, the scent of wood smoke and old wine mingling in the air. The loyal nurse, Eurycleia, her face a map of joy and disbelief, hurries to Penelope's chamber. She carries the news her queen has awaited for 2 decades. The master has returned, and the suitors are no more. Yet Penelope's heart, a fortress built of patience and sorrow, does not yield so easily. Too many years have been spent untangling false hopes from cruel deceptions. She fears this is just another phantom, a trick of the gods. She descends the familiar stone staircase into the hall, her steps measured, her expression guarded. There, by the great central hearth you sit. The grime of your long journey has been washed away, and you are clothed in fine, clean robes, the firelight catching the silver in your hair. You look every bit the king she remembers, yet she keeps her distance. She sits opposite, a gulf of silence between you, her eyes searching your face for a truth she dares not yet believe. Your son Telemachus cannot understand her hesitation and speaks sharply of a heart hardened by time. But Penelope's caution is a different kind of wisdom, a shield she cannot yet lower. She knows a secret that lies at the very core of your shared life, a test that only the true Odysseus could possibly comprehend. Turning to a servant, she gives a curious order, her voice steady. She asks that the master's bed be brought out from the chamber he built, so that it might be prepared for him with warm fleeces. The words strike you with the force of a physical blow. A sudden, sharp anger rises within you, born not of malice, but of a deep, protective love for what you have built. You cannot comprehend her command. Who, you demand to know, could possibly have moved your bed? It is an impossible feat. You explain how you crafted that bed with your own hands, building the entire chamber around the immense trunk of a living olive tree that grew in the courtyard. You describe how you planed and shaped that living wood to form a unique, unmovable bedpost, a symbol of your rootedness, your marriage, your kingdom. No one could move it without felling the tree itself. And with this outburst of wounded pride and intimate detail, the final wall around Penelope's heart dissolves. This is the secret sign, the unshakable proof she has been waiting for. The construction of your marital bed was a memory known only to the two of you, a foundation as secret and as solid as your love. Tears of release finally stream down her face as she runs to you, her arms wrapping around your neck. She asks your forgiveness for her doubt, explaining the long, lonely years of fending off imposters, of guarding a hope that had almost worn away. You hold her close, and you both weep, letting go of 20 years of pain, longing, and profound uncertainty. It is a reunion as profound and as welcome as the sight of land to a sailor lost on a wine-dark sea. Together, you ascend to your chamber, to the immovable bed that has waited for you. Long into the night, you trade the stories of your separate Odysseys. You speak of Cyclops and Sirens, of goddesses and underworld shades. She, in turn, tells of her own quiet, protracted battle, a war of wits fought with a loom and a promise, a lonely vigil of grief and cunning. Your wandering is done. You have reclaimed your hall, your wife, and your son. There are, of course, new challenges on the horizon. The families of the slain suitors will soon demand justice, and your authority across Ithaca must be carefully re-established. But these are the burdens of a king at peace, the work of rebuilding a life. You are home, in the bed you built, with your wife in your arms, and as you share the quiet warmth of that first night, you begin to look beyond the shores of your own island, to the final curious prophecy that still awaits its fulfillment. You have sailed for a decade upon the wine-dark sea, the timbers of your black-hulled ship groaning with the memory of storms. The sting of salt spray is a constant companion, and the sun that warms your face has shone on lands beyond the charts of men. You have tasted the honey-sweet lotus on its languid shore, and heard the faint, sorrowful whispers of the dead in the asphodel meadows at the edge of the world. Now the ground beneath your feet is finally truly your own. It is not a sorceress's island or a treacherous coast. It is the solid, sun-warmed, beloved rock of Ithaca. The story of your journey, the Odyssey, becomes more than an account of adventure. It is a testament to human resilience, to the quiet power of cunning over brute force, and to the deep, unshakable gravity of home. You have been a king and a soldier, a captain and a castaway. But you were also a captive on a paradise isle, a beggar in your own great hall, and a stranger to your own son. You have seen the very best of humanity in the grace of Nausicaa, and the very worst in the monstrous hunger of the Cyclops. Tonight you have been part of that long-suffering crew. You have felt the deep weariness in your arms from endless rowing, the damp chill of fear in a giant's cave, and the profound sorrow of losing comrades to the unforgiving waves. You have learned that the greatest monsters are not always those with many heads or a single baleful eye. They can be the subtle currents of despair, the fog of forgetfulness, or the siren call of giving up. And now your watch is over. The ship is moored, the anchor is set, and the long voyage has reached its end. The familiar scent of wild thyme and olive groves replaces the salt of the open water. Let the memory of the whispering winds and the deep quiet sea carry you now into your own peaceful harbour of sleep. Rest, for the journey is done. Sleep well. This has been Sleepy Stories.